Okay, welcome everyone. Let's call to order the late April 11th Historic Resources Board meeting, and let's begin by rising and pledging our allegiance to the flag. Michelle, do you want to read it?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, can we get a roll call, please? Here.
Here.
It was on, then it went off. It was green. A couple of proclamations acknowledging National Preservation Month, May 2023. Before we launch into that, I had a chance to chat with Wanda Guibert. I think there's some confusion, so this goes to staff. Was the intention, I've signed both of these, was the intention for these to be presented tonight? That's what the appearance is. However, there seems to be a disconnect because Wanda advised me that the Neubauers will not be here tonight to receive them. And I don't know if anyone from the Native Daughters is going to be here. And if so, is it your, yeah, certainly. Is it your preference that we push this over until the next meeting, Wanda, or what would you like to do? Oh, well, it's not too controversial. Drew's truck was parked in front of his office if you want, someone wants to run over really fast. Well, it's whatever you'd like. Would you, should we do the presentation for the Native Daughters, Georgiana, or, and then? Well, no, I'm just trying to come up with a protocol for how we're going to handle this. Let me ask staff, Ryan, do you have a preference to we kick both of them into the next meeting? Well, let's address the first issue. Rhonda said that historically it's been the process that she described, but just because that's been the historical way doesn't mean that's the way we always have to do it. I think it's kind of appropriate coming from the Historic Resources Board, actually, which is the council. You know, we're the ones that deal with historic issues. So, and like I said, we have them. They're beautiful, suitable for framing. So do you have a preference whether you'd like to receive these from the Historic Resources Board or? I see. All right.
Can you hear me now? Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm here to help in any way I can. Typically for the last several years, we went out and got photographs and made that into an award plaque. Designed that for each recognition award, and we present it at the May meeting. That would be city council eventually, right? Yeah. So typically we would recommend tonight the HRB or the Historic Resources Board would make a recommendation to the Planning Commission and of the approval that the Historical Resource Board and ask them, the Planning Commission, to recommend to City Council. And with that, if it's final, then I'm being asked to help out with that, and I'll be happy to do that.
Okay. What's that? All right. Well, one of the issues with the paradigm of this board recommending to the planning commission, who we also are in a few minutes, is that it's not on the agenda to accept HRB recommendation.
Yeah, so with Vonda's timeline, we would do that in May. Staff's thought on this was that we would just simplify the process and have it come from the HRB, but I don't think that if it's appropriate that it come from the city council as always, then that's fine.
I know. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I don't see why not. What do you all think? No one can what?
How's that? Thumbs up from Don? Yeah, I think that the speaker was just low. So let's see if that works.
Okay, so the question before the board is, do we want to have proclamations like this done? Be presented from the Historic Resources Board or go through HRB, Planning Commission, City Council? Let me just take kind of a straw poll from the board. Strong feelings about that one way or the other? Mhm. Okay. What's your vision for the ceremony? Okay. And the plaques that you have done in the past, David, is that something you can have, is that something you present in conjunction with a certificate? Both? And you have been the one to have to create those plaques? And can you do that by the next meeting in May so we can? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll save these until May. And we'll award them with a ceremony. Trumpets and everything for the May meeting. And the entity that will be making the presentations shall be the Historic Resources Board. Agreed? Okay. And that meets with your approval, Vanda and Georgiana? Mhm. No, we just said that we'd continue this to May. But they would cut these awards and plaques and ceremonies and everything would be courtesy of the Historic Resources Board, not the City Council. Well, and we'll open up public comment and so forth, but I'm just trying to come up with the paradigm for handling this, so. But we're all on the same page, that meets with your approval, that idea? Okay. So that's what we're heading towards, so with that, yeah, let's open up public comment to see if anyone would like to speak on this agenda item, these two historic properties.
I think that Don's talking about the fact that you need to speak into your mic. Oh,
We have Georgiana Galarte and Vanity Bear.
That's right. Good to see you too. Okay. Sure. Vanda, check to see if the green light's on that mic.
There, now it's green. Uh, This letter is from the Bertha Briggs Foundation. I don't know if any of you ever remember it or have any idea what it is. But let me tell you what this says. It says, San Juan Bautista Historical Society. Dear society members, please accept this check, which we give in recognition of the leadership and devotion your directors continue to show for the preservation of buildings in San Juan Bautista. Years ago, your proposal initiated the declaration of the month of the May as Preservation Month in the City of History, San Juan Bautista. Dave Medeiros, artist photographer, deserves recognition for his participation every year. The pictures he has contributed to the property owners become treasured keepsakes for their families. Please thank him for this. And this is signed by me. I'm the president of the Bertha Briggs Foundation. I am also a member of the Historical Society, which has sent you a letter. The City of San Juan Bautista Historical Resource Board. Dear board members, we have just received a contribution from the Bertha Briggs Foundation, which was funded by Bertha Briggs, a founding member of the local San Juan Bautista Parlor number 179 of the Native Daughters of the Golden West. She was a past grand president of Native Daughters and is remembered as a contributor to the restoration of the Julia Morgan building in San Francisco, which is the home of the Native Daughters. This contribution asks us to remember Dave Medeiros' contributions each year to the city's annual Preservation Month. Dave's photographs make the event special. Thank you, Dave. Recognized in your photographs are buildings that Bertha Briggs is associated with. One is the local Boy Scout troop, 428 yard. Bertha Briggs' niece also served as the original trustee of the Bertha Briggs Foundation. Her name was Lillian Johnson. We remember her as a woman who had the Haviland China shop in the Bluebird Hotel. Briggs was a major contributor in 1935 to our Native Daughters Adobe home here on 4th Street in San Juan Bautista. And that is what we are proposing, that you be honored this May. And this is signed from Vanda. I hope all of this did not confuse you, but we're here to honor Dave Medeiros and all the work he's done to help us out.
Thank you. I'm humbly honored and I don't know what to say. But when I get a hold of you next time, I'll be happy to tell you what I think. But anyway, thank you so much for the honor. I'll try to carry that forward as best I can. The life work for me. I just can't stop taking pictures of this beautiful city and the people in it. But again, thank you.
So nice to see everybody here. It seems like old times.
Thank you, Georgiana. David, here's a beautiful letter. Okay, well, these two proclamations, these two buildings, which have been nominated for this recognition. Okay, seeing none, the discussion returns to the board. I guess theoretically, we have the ability to say, no, we don't think those are the right buildings. We want you to pick a different one, but I don't think there's any objection to it. Does anyone have any thoughts on that? No, everyone's in agreement. They've made wise, good selections. So why don't we do this? Why don't we get a motion to accept the nominations from the Historical Society for the two buildings so named for acknowledgement in Historic Preservation Month in May. And then if the maker of the motion would also be so kind as to include our previous discussion that this item be continued into the May Historic Resources Board meeting at such time, or at the time of which we will make the proclamations. David will have his plaques and so forth ready at that time. And we'll have a ceremony. Right? Okay. So can someone articulate a motion, something along those lines?
I make a motion that we accept the recommended properties for recognition and ceremony in May. And that the Historical Society make the presentation.
I second it.
Okay, so the motion is second, all in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. 4-0. One absent. Great, thank you all. I'll hand these back to you, Trish, in a minute. Okay, next, we set aside time each month for members of the public to make generalized comments for items that are not on the agenda, things that we're not otherwise going to cover. This is Historic Resources Board only. Keep in mind, this is not planning commission yet. Any public comments for items not on the agenda? If there are none, then we move on to the consent agenda. We have the affidavit of posting and the minutes of March 7th. Is there a motion to approve both?
Go ahead. You have a voice. Go ahead and say it. I've spoken up.
All right, can you hear me? All right, I make a motion to approve the consent items on the agenda.
Your second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? 4-0. And let's see, last thing is just comments from the planning commissioners, but Historic Resource Board members, any comments about anything?
I have none.
None?
Nothing for me.
Nothing from me. Community Development Director comments?
No comments.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
I second that.
All in favor? Aye. All
Aye.
opposed? We are adjourned. Why don't we stretch our legs for a minute literally have like just a couple of minutes and Jose and I can switch places. I'll get these to Trish. Pick up after that.
Hi, everyone. We'll get started here in about 2 minutes, just to give people time. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Chambers. We're really happy to have you guys here. It's now 6:30 p.m. and I would like to call the Planning Commission meeting on Tuesday, April 11th, 2023 to order. Commissioner Maderos, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, please stand.
Again, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Clerk, can I please get a roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Aranda, I'm sorry.
Here.
Commissioner DeVries,
Here.
Commissioner Maderas,
Here.
Commissioner Newkirk Smith. Here. And Commissioner Correa is excused tonight.
Yes, Tony is excused tonight.
We have a quorum.
All right, I'm gonna be opening up general public comments. At this time, at this time, we will be receiving public comment, which is generally limited to 3 minutes. For those attending in person and wish to make a public comment, please fill out a speaker card and present it to the clerk. As a reminder, the planning commission will not be engaging. If you have anything that you require that requires follow-up, please see our clerk as she will be happy to follow up with you. So at this time, I'm going to open up the floor. Is there anyone here in chambers that would like to say something?
I had a
Please.
speaker card first and I wanted to clarify. Jolene, did you want to speak for this public comment, open public comment?
Yeah, it's a question. Does item 6B refer only to the food truck trailer issue, or does it also refer to the parklets?
Yeah, I think that this item was requested by couple of planning commissioners, and I think that their intention is to have a discussion about outdoor dining in general.
So that would include the parklets.
It would.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that, because otherwise I would make comments on the parklet now, but yeah, if it includes it, then great.
Trish?
As far as speaker cards, I don't have any others on the open public comments.
All right, with that being said, we are going to move over.
We do, Commissioner Aranda, we do have two hands up, Sean Fitzharris and Kara Vaughn.
I think I have someone here and. Yes. Oh, yes, you were still having public comment, so if you want to come up to the podium, please state your name for the record. Correct.
Well, I'm here about the hop-up rows. Is that on the agenda?
No.
Okay. Just first of all, I have to acknowledge that I am the next door neighbor and very good friends with the Ricketts family. I have known these boys since they were very tiny. So I have to acknowledge that first up because I have a bias right there.
I'm sorry, excuse me, but that would be on item, I believe,
Okay, that's what I was
6.
asking if that
Okay, we're
was.
trying to clarify. I'm sorry.
Okay,
So if you could wait.
I will, but
Okay,
Sure.
great.
All right. All right, so any other open or general public comments here in the room? If not, I'm going to see if there's any on Zoom. Brian, is there anything?
Yes, Kara Vaughn has her hand up and I've authorized her to go ahead and speak.
Hi, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just had my hand up earlier when the HRB was having its discussion, and I just want to let you know that I could not hear. Trish, the speaker situation was remedied, and apparently people had their hands up, were not being acknowledged, but it looks like it's been remedied now, so I will lower my hand. Thank you.
And Kara, I apologize if I missed raised hands during the HRB. This whole Zoom thing's new to me. I'll be better at paying attention to that. Sure.
All right, Brian, is there anything else? Anyone else for general public comment on Zoom?
Kara still has her hand up. Kara?
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right. No, no one else.
All right, so with that being said, I'm going to close general public comments and we're going to be moving into informal project review. Staff, do you have anything?
We don't have anything for informal project review.
Thank you. Moving down the agenda to item number 4, consent. There are 2 items on the consent agenda. Would any commissioner like to pull any item for separate vote or separate discussion? No? Okay, and then would any member of the public like to pull an item? Any member on Zoom? Staff?
There are no hands raised.
Got it. All right, at this point, can I get a motion from one of our commissioners? To,
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the affidavit of posting agenda and also item B, approve the minutes of March 7th meeting and March 7th of this year.
second. Staff, can we get a roll call?
Yes, Commissioner Aranda,
Yes.
Commissioner Korea is absent, Commissioner DeVries.
Yes.
Commissioner Madaris,
Yes,
Commissioner Newkirk Smith.
Yes,
Thank you. All members of the commission being present, the motion is stated by the maker passes 4-0-0-1 with one absence.
Thank you. All right, moving down the agenda, number 5, action items for a general plan amendment and rezoning of 705 4th Street. Staff, would you please share your recommendations?
Yes, Chair, and members of the commission, this is a general plan amendment and rezoning for 705 4th Street, which is the El Teatro Campesino site. And this need for this amendment was brought to our attention by the property owners and their representatives out of concern for the current zoning designation and general plan designation that renders this particular land use non-conforming. And there are some restrictions that come with non-conforming land uses, the ability to improve the site, restrictions on continuation of the use if it's been halted for a year. And to avoid those restrictions, the property owners felt that they might like to rezone the property. So at that point, we decided that the city would take this on as the applicant. And so rather than the property owners as applicants, the city is the applicant. So it would be appropriate for the commission to, since this is a public hearing item, the applicants, I'm sorry, not the applicants, but the property owners have requested that we postpone, and I would recommend that we table instead of postponing the hearing on this item, because this is a notice public hearing. It's appropriate to accept any comments, even though our intention this evening is to recommend that the commission table the item pending further consideration by the property owners regarding what they would like to see actually happen with zoning and plan designations.
Thank you. So then I would like to open up a hearing as of now. And see if there's any public comment regarding that.
Chairman, I have one public speaker card from Vanity Bear.
Commissioners, Vanity Bear, 5 Donna Street. I support this measure that El Teatro Campesino is proposing. I think because of the reasoning they have, I support it. However, I know that there's a limited number of general plan amendments you can make per year, and I think there are other issues that we need to make at the same time. So I hope that, for instance, there are other districts that should be proclaimed, like we did the 2005 Historic Resources Inventory. The professional consultants recommended the bungalow district. We've also recommended, or we're in the process of recommending the utility district, the warehouses, the garages, this was a very blue collar town, and there are a lot of buildings in town that have been repurposed from the original design. So I just wondered, how many general plan amendments can we make at one time? And can we include other buildings at the same time? Thank you.
Anyone else in chambers that would like to make a public comment?
I don't have any other speaker cards on this.
Anyone on Zoom?
Looks like we have Carl Vaughn.
Go ahead, Kara. You have comments?
Okay, I'm sorry, I was waiting. Okay, yes. I also support the amendment. And I was surprised to see that we have a historic overlay district. We've got the HD district, which is city designated historic district. And I would just like the members of the Planning Commission and HRB Commission to know that we actually have a city historic district, which is beyond the National Register Historic Third Street District, which apparently has been given another designation, NRHD. So we do have a historic district. It covers a state park. It's a much larger area than the downtown district. It includes the community center, Rosa's house, et cetera, et cetera. And so if we're going to start using the overlay district to mark historic district city designated that are, not contiguous, then I would urge that you also include the National Register properties in town, which are the Morentis House and the Wilcox House. And I think in the staff report also, it indicated that Teatro Campesino might be the only commercial style building in a residential district. But I was wondering about the barn building. There's a big barn closer to McCullamy, also on 4th Street. I'm just wondering if that is in a mixed use district or if that's also in the residential district. And then Vanda has indicated to you that many of us feel there should be additional districts, such as the bungalow district, as she mentioned, was recommended by our consultants. And then we also would need a warehouse industrial district, because these are at risk, as you can see, with the Teatro Campesino, which was a packing warehouse at one time, and the other one further down the street, and we have quite a few in town. And then there's a third district that we could consider, which is associated with the rise of automobile tourism. And these would be gas stations, of which there were many, and repair shops. So those are my comments. Hopefully you can give all of that consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom that would like to make a comment?
I don't see another hand raised.
Thank you. All right, with it.
Chair, I'd like to answer just a couple of the questions. First, there are 4 opportunities to amend the general plan during each year. And those are the calendar year. And I think there's a lot of relevance to the testimony with respect to the districts, the floating district, which is the HD district, which hasn't really been employed in the city to date that I know of. It does make a lot of sense. And I think that's broadens the topic here for this particular amendment. And I think it deserves some attention from the HRB and the Planning Commission separately from this particular case. So I would recommend that we bring this back, and we also have our architectural historian who's well versed in how these districts can be formed. So I appreciate the input, and I think that we will be agendizing topic of our historic our historic preservation ordinance topics related to the ordinance in the context of improvements to the way we operate here for and with respect to our historic resources, whether they're in a district or outside a district. is going to come before the HRB.
Thank you. All right, and any comments from the planning commission?
I had a couple questions, Mr. Chair. Mr. Fox indicated. Brian, just so I can, I had a question when I was going through this material. The theatrical property started off with MU zoning, right? Which incorporated C1 and C2. And then, and theaters were consistent with that. But then it was the most recent general plan and zoning amendment that made that existing non-conforming today. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Now I understand what happened. I agree with you, Mr. Couch, and also the sentiments expressed by Kara and Vanda that we have a lot of properties in town that are deserving of protection. But let me ask you this question. With the theatrical property, it's a general plan amendment, zone change, and an overlay district, like a three-pronged protection scheme for that property. Is that right?
Yes, although the property owner has indicated that they are not settled on the particular land use that they think serves the Chatro's best interests.
Ergo the
And-
tabling it.
And that was the reason for the recommendation.
Okay.
But yes, the way it sits now, that our recommendation, if carried forward, would provide a appropriate zoning designation, general plan designation, and an overlay that would recognize the historic district, historical nature of the use in the building.
I guess my question therefore is, and thank you for confirming that for me in my mind. Vanda, Kara, others have even tonight articulated some other properties, like let's take the potato sheds, for example. Very historic, cool old building. If there was the desire of the HRB, commission, council, whomever, to offer or afford more protection for structures like that, would that be accomplished with just the historic overlay? And in other words, it wouldn't necessarily need a general plan amendment and a zone change, would it?
No, and it wouldn't, actually, no. That overlay district can be applied wherever the city feels it would be most appropriate.
Excellent.
The other thing is that it's not always necessary to apply the historical district overlay. What it is a flag that identifies a property as needing some sort of special attention. That's what overlay districts are for. So that when we look at the map, we see, oh, there's a residential land use, but then it's got a historic district overlay, which means that we better pay attention to whether that, whatever is being proposed for that building can occur, and under what circumstances.
So, and this is something that you just a minute ago indicated should be agendized for further discussion by the HRB and then the planning commission?
Yeah, you may recall Meg Clovis gave a sort of a rundown of things that she would like to see happen with our historic preservation program in general. And I think this is one of those topics that would be included.
Okay. I don't know about the city, but I, for one, would sure appreciate receiving from you, Vanda, and you, Kara, if you can hear me, just an idea of the type of buildings you think would be suitable for this kind of treatment, so we can start having that conversation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further comments from the commissioners?
Yes, I also looking forward to any recommendation by the city for this type of a project. And hopefully that this project will give us precedence as to what we do in the future with other structures within the city. So I'm looking forward to that coming back next week or next month. Thank you.
So therefore, Brian, are you looking for a motion to table, not continue to a date certain, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Chair, if it's appropriate, I'd make a motion that we table this agenda item until a time in the future that the applicant and the city deems be appropriate, and therefore be tabled.
And I'll second that.
Clerk, can I get a roll call?
Commissioner Aranda,
Yes.
Commissioner Korea is absent. Commissioner DeFreeze.
Yes.
Commissioner Maderas,
Yes.
Commissioner Newkirk Smith.
Yes,
All members of the commission be present. The motion is stated by the maker passes unanimously 4-0 with, and Commissioner Korea is absent.
Thank you. All right, so moving down the agenda, on to number 6, informational and discussion items. So we're gonna go into 6A, municipal codes and studies pertaining to the annexation.
So this agenda item is for information purposes, and of course, any discussion that you might like to have is appropriate also. And we're also looking for any public comment that might arise out of that discussion. That's also appropriate for this particular agenda item. So what was requested was a simple, I think, sort of outline of the annexation process and basically how it works with respect to our planning program in general, and more specifically, I think in this case, we are undertaking a pretty comprehensive review of our sphere of influence. That involves some consideration of properties that may be added to the city's boundary within the city limits, or available for annexation at some future date, or otherwise protected as open space outside that area within a growth boundary or a green belt, if you will. So all these things are on the table for discussion through our urban growth boundary subcommittee. Some planning commissioners are on that committee, and I understand that committee will probably pick up where it left off in April or early May. So whenever that happens, that will start the conversation again about how the city would like to grow, how the community would like to be organized in the future over a long period of time. We're talking about, a time span of, anywhere from 10 years to 35 years, really within the framework of the scope of the general plan. So that whole conversation is a general plan level conversation because it affects every element in the general plan ultimately. And that's the kind of conversation we're having, and that's why it's so important to get it right as we begin restart that conversation. So here you have in the staff report a presentation that we gave to the Urban Growth Boundary Committee in 2021, and referenced in here is a LAFCO training video that you can access that will enable you to understand the annexation process itself with respect to the city, the county, and LAFCO. It's a nice overview prepared by the LAFCO executive director at the time. Basically, the process is that we're going to identify a sphere of influence. In the memo that you see, there's an outline of the things that are considered when the city is thinking about changing its sphere of influence. There are several items there. I won't go into detail because that's not really what we're all about here, although I can answer questions if there's something that interests you on that in that list. But it's necessary to establish a sphere of influence in coordination with the county and with LAFCO. Part of that process is that we do what we need to do here locally first, and then we make the case to the county as a second step. There is an environmental review that occurs at that time before after we start our conversation with the county, and then some basic understanding that what we want to see is what the county will agree with. We'll start an EIR, that comprehensive evaluation of the environmental impacts at the general plan level again. And then as we do that, CEQA review will also look at our own municipal services. So we will fold in what LAFCO requires as a municipal services review into that EIR that we put together for the sphere of influence change. And again, all the issues with respect to growth and development, community character, services, our capacity, and all of that are fair game for the environmental document. And they're also accompanied, in this case, fortunately, by a community plan that's been underway for a couple of years now. So there's a lot of description and a lot of exploration of alternatives in that plan. And those will also come out as the city looks at alternatives. That EIR will also include a explanation, a description of those alternatives that have been looked at by the city that will be presented to the county and LAFCO as we move through the process. So it's a big program. It takes a long time. We expect that this whole exercise with respect to our sphere of influence will probably take another couple of years. And in that time, there will be a lot of alternatives, a lot of options, a lot of choices that the city can make to put that community plan together and have our sphere of influence represented by that plan as we move into the conversation with the county and get our LAFCO approval for that sphere. And if there is a green belt, that would be incorporated into that document as a form of mitigation. So this is just a couple pages. There's a lot of summary here. So I encourage you, any of you that are interested in the annexation process, the community plan program, to get together with Dawn and I to go over the program. And of course, the Urban Growth Boundary Committee will also be delving and doing a deep dive into the issues involved in our urban growth question. So there's a lot to learn here. Those of you that are not on the Urban Growth Boundary Committee, you're welcome to access us to spend some time going over the plan and learning more about it. Any questions?
Yes, you guys want to start off or kick off?
Or discussion?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Brian, yes, I do have some questions here. So ideally what I'm looking for is just planning regulations and considerations. Where it comes down to planning zones, adequate parking for that area that we're looking to annex. Whether we're preserving or neglecting that area, affordable housing, how that's going to look like, what stormwater control is going to look like, and whether it's feasible for that area, since we know that area is prone to flooding. Also, I would like to see a water sewer rate study looked at. So if we are considering that location, what is a 75 or 100-year plan for infrastructure replacement needs? Just a study in general. Other items as well, I would like to look at whether, is there anything that's native species up in those mountains or on that property that we would need to look at? Or how does it look like when we want to add trees or things like that? So, what kind of walls or fences would be built in that area? What does the noise ordinance look like? Obviously, there's a freeway that cuts in the back of that, and maybe looking at occupancy permits and whatnot. So just in general, I would just like some of these things to be looked at and, those questions to be answered when it comes down to the annexation. And that's all I had as a discussion item, or just, bringing that up to attention.
Yeah, those are all great topics for the plan and for the municipal services review that will be part of this whole program.
And I just to go off of Councilman Aranda, when we are being requested to review the annexation, are we also going to be given a community plan for that land so that we could address fencing and?
Yes. The community plan has a community design component where we talk about we want to talk about and talk more about how development should be designed relative to our areas within the city that are already developed and areas that have not been developed or are outside the city that need to be protected or conserved or preserved in some way. So those relationships will need to be teased out in the plan and including at that level of detail. I think that's appropriate.
It finally just registered with me. By community plan, are you referring to the work that's currently
Thank
underway?
God the priest is on that thing.
What?
I said, thank God dance on that thing.
I know. Can you close it? Are you watching?
I couldn't get there fast enough, sorry.
By community plan, are you referring to the work that's underway with the EMC?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, and what's the ETA on will their work product be delivered as a document?
Yeah, there will be a plan document. That plan document currently does not have an EIR associated with it, but eventually will. So it'll be the plan itself, which is discrete document, then an EIR that accompanies it that sort of talks about all the environmental impacts and the way that the plan mitigates its own impact. So one thing about general plan level documents like this is that they are intended to be and must be self-mitigating. So, for example, if we know that future development will cause impacts to visual resources, then we expect that that plan will incorporate policies and implementation measures to mitigate those impacts as a part of the plan itself. So when the plan is carried out, those environmental impacts, we'll be able to cite those environmental impacts with respect to each development that occurs, and then talk about how those measures will be implemented in the projects themselves in order to enable a finding that we're that the approval is consistent with general plan. So yes, it's a document, but there's a lot more that comes with it.
The plan itself will be delivered in advance of and separate and apart from the EIR, correct? First, I mean, that's what we'll get first.
Yes.
Do we have an ETA on that? When do you expect to receive it?
Really, I can't answer that question because the Urban Growth Boundary Committee hasn't met yet. We started its process, so I'd be just speculating at this point.
So is it fair for to say that the community plan is awaiting further work by the UGB SOI committee?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said, I'm sorry for interrupting, Brian.
Yeah.
And the UGB SOI next scheduled meeting, you said anticipate April, perhaps May?
I'm speculating, but I'm thinking that that committee is formed, and I expect that they're going to pick it up pretty soon. So again, I don't have a specific time frame, but I expect, April, May. And then, we would like the plan to be at least put together in draft form for consideration sometime this year. That would be nice, not to have it go into 2024.
Right.
So,
But right now, on hold pending the SOI.
correct.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions, concerns, comments? Okay, then. I would like to open this to public comments.
I don't have any speaker cards on this item yet.
Anyone in chambers who would like to come up to the podium? Nope. Anyone on Zoom?
I noticed Don has a requested speak. Go ahead, Don.
I'll only take 3 minutes. Thank you very much. I just wanted to inform some of the questions that you had. We did recently adopt both a water and sewer rate increase, and those are extensive studies based on the current general plan at an average growth rate of 1.9% between last year in 2021 and 2035. So it does talk about water and sewer needs as the population grows. We did not grow at 1.9% last year. We probably didn't even grow at 0.9% last year. So that'll ebb and flow with the developments that come through your hands and head us towards the future. So I just wanted to assure the chair that we do have a recent and current water and sewer rate study. And the only reason the UGB is not met is my fault. I've been inundated with flood and hope to surface from FEMA early next week. And I have met with the new member of the committee and spent a good 90 minutes with Chris Martirama, bringing him up to speed. So I just got to get the notice out and invite out this week to answer that question. So we'll meet as soon as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Staff, anyone else on Zoom or open public comment?
There's no one else on Zoom.
All right, thank you. We're going to be moving on to our next item on the agenda, which is going to be, sorry, it's going to be business conducted outdoors and outdoor dining.
Yes, Chair and members of the commission, this item also was requested by commission members. And these are good timing because these are in the public discussion as we speak. And so good to have an opportunity to have this on the agenda so that we can sort of explore what's involved from the city's regulatory scheme about outdoor dining. And what it's all about. So I'd like to just frame it a little bit here before we get into the weeds. There are a couple of ways, there are a few ways that outdoor dining occurs in San Juan Bautista. First, we have special events, and in special events, there's a lot of outdoor dining, as you know, the Arts and Crafts Festival, the cook-off. San Juan Day, there's a lot of food. So that outdoor dining comes with within the framework of a special events permit. So with each special events permit, we know where things are going to occur. We have a map, we have a traffic control plan, we have a organized security. And we have a list of vendors that all of which have been vetted by the health department. And we know who's here and we know where they're going to be and we know how long they're going to be when they come and when they're going to leave. And we know what the conditions are when they leave, what they're supposed to look like. So it's a complete package that we have for special events. Anything that occurs outside that envelope that is not permitted is basically becomes a code enforcement matter. So those activities, they get a visit from the code enforcement officer or me in some cases. And then they're advised that what they're doing at that point in time is not consistent with the city's regulations. So that's one example. The other example is where we allow outdoor dining in association with an existing business. And in cases like that, typically, historically, even looking back as far as 2006, the city adopted an ordinance, a couple of companion ordinances at that time that prohibited businesses from being conducted outdoors. And that's not just some, that's all businesses conducted indoors, inside an enclosed building, with some exceptions. And those exceptions, even at that time, were built into the zoning ordinance list of uses. And so in certain areas and for certain types of uses, under certain kinds of conditions, outdoor dining is allowed or is a conditional use. The city does not allow, by ordinance, does not allow mobile food vendors to operate on its streets. And so there is a restriction there. There's also a restriction on where outdoor dining can occur, even with business that's established. And so there is a regulation in the ordinance since that day, when that in 2006, when the ordinance became effective, that says that you can have outdoor dining, but you need to be associated with a business on the same site. Now, the ordinance doesn't say what associated means. Fortunately for us, we can exercise a little bit of flexibility there and not require something that's branded with the business itself, or otherwise explicitly tied to the business. So we're able to consider things that are, negotiated between a dining vendor and the restaurant that is going to allow that to occur, so that there can be, that relationship can be honored with through a permit. Let me just say, make sure that I cover all the various kinds of things that somehow I turned the page at the wrong time. But I think that's basically it. So let's say, for example, we have a few uses here that have requested use permits for this particular kind of thing. 18 Farrell next door. Also, Brewery 25 had a use permit for not non-specified food service outdoors. And then also just this evening, I had a talk with the El Teatro Campesino folks who sometimes have an event on their property where they invite food vendor to come and provide meals for people that attend that event. And so it's possible, I think, to get under a use permit or and I wouldn't suggest in those circumstances that Teatro get a use permit because they don't do this all the time. It's not something that they do, every week or frequently. It's just something that they do every now and then. So in those circumstances, we have what's called a temporary land use permit. And under a temporary land use permit, much like a special events permit where people are allowed to do it within the confines of the permit, it's the same thing, except it's a one-time thing for temporary land use. So what I advise the Campesino is that, they can have that there provided they get this temporary permit. That allows us to look at things like parking, access, health and safety issues that are related to the use permit itself. And we're able to make the findings that are required for that permit by our ordinance. So just like we have to make certain findings and look at certain things when we issue a special events permit, we also have to look at things and make certain findings when we consider temporary land uses too. So there are a variety of ways to get at this particular question. There's no one solution that fits everyone, but there are some sort of standard approaches that people have used here in the city over and over again. And where we do have a business that wants to have a food vendor that's not going to sell food that's produced on site, but comes in and provides something unique or something special for customers on a routine basis, that solution has always been a use permit. And it's not just something that we made up because we have a particular business in town that wants to do this now. It's something that has been in effect, as I said, for a very long time. So the reason for this, of course, is that the city prioritizes its brick and mortar businesses with respect to when those businesses are established, there are a set of rules that they have to comply with in terms of how the business is set up, how it's advertised, what sort of health and safety regulations apply, what sort of parking arrangements are necessary. You remember, recall the new restaurant and bar that the Kane family wants to construct at 205 Alameda. You know, that approval required that we look at all aspects of the restaurant use, look at all aspects of the residential use that was part of that mixed use project, and deal with things like lighting, trash enclosures, noise, parking, landscaping, licensing for the mixed use. So a whole host of things go into a business that wants to establish on that basis. And it's very time consuming, expensive, and they're there for a long time. They're there permanently, basically. So when we issue a use permit, not a special event permit or a temporary land use permit, but when we issue a use permit, that permit becomes attached to the land. It's not like a variance. It's not like a site development permit, you know, where things can be modified, of course, but it's attached to the land. So we say that it runs with the land because it's there forever, as long as the owner, and it's transferable from one owner to another. So let's say, for example, the red building over here, the Baines building, wants to have a vendor come in, and they do have a use permit. Although that particular enterprise might not have worked out for them then, they have a use permit that they can exercise anytime they want. On into the future, as long as that use permit is valid. Now, let's say, for example, you have a use permit that's issued under certain circumstances. Those circumstances change. The use permit starts to become irrelevant, or there are aspects of the use permit that go out of date or no longer applicable to one reason or another. Well, the owner might want to look for an amendment. Let's say they want to intensify that use. Let's say they want to have that use applied in areas of the site that weren't contemplated previously. Let's say, for example, that use permit had 10 seats for people that wanted to come in and have a meal, and now they want to have 20. That means that use permit needs to be amended. And again, once that amendment happens, then that also runs with the land. So the use permits are a fairly serious matter. We want to make sure that we understand the nature of the use that's being approved. We want to condition them appropriately. We want to make sure that whatever flexibility people want to see in those use permits is provided. And we want to make sure that the public health, safety, and general welfare findings can be met through the description of how that land use is supposed to work. So we want to see lighting, we want to see paving, hours of operation, and we want to see the fact that maybe deal with any potential conflicts with adjacent land uses that might occur through the operation of those uses. So all of those things we'll look at through the use permit process. So those are the ways that outdoor dining can occur in San Juan Bautista. It's not that it can't occur. If that it can occur, it is allowed under certain circumstances, and a permit is necessary. And without that permit, then there is a code enforcement problem. That's the staff report.
Thank you. So at this point, I'm gonna open up to board member comments. Have anything to say?
Yeah, okay, thank you, Brian. I just had a few follow-up questions based on your presentation. I went on to the San Juan Bautista Municipal Code website and pulled the codes that were cited in correspondence that's been sent to the food truck in question. And then also, I think it mirrors your email that you put in our materials on Monday, November 7th. So specifically, that's on section 7-4-140A and 140B. And I'm first, just so we can cross those off, we can agree that, well, let's just get to the bottom line here. I think we're all talking about Hopper Brothers. I think that's why these people are here tonight. So let's just get to the bottom line, as I said.
Can I just say one thing?
Sure.
We're careful. Let's say, for example, 18th Barrel wants to have a taco truck today. And they want to have a donut truck tomorrow. That's okay. We're not looking at the individual land uses, individual businesses themselves. We're
Well-
looking at the use
I was
itself.
gonna get to that.
Okay.
But first of all, just so we can scratch things off, can we agree that 140A and 140B don't apply because they specifically refer to city streets and city parking lots with regard to Hopper Brothers? In other words, there's no allegation that Hopper Brothers was conducting business illegally on a city street or parking lot.
Yeah, that's true. However, the first introduction that I have with this piece of business was that I believe they wanted to, correct me if I'm wrong, wanted to be able to operate food truck within the city, not on private property, but just in general. And so these would apply under those circumstances.
Yeah, agreed. But as regards the issue that brings everyone here tonight, they've been operating on Vertigo private property, or private property leased, owned by the Canyons, leased by Vertigo. And so therefore 140A and 140B, I think we can agree don't apply. So then we're left with 1104-030, which is the all uses shall be conducted entirely within an enclosed building. That was very curious to me. Because I know that, well, Vertigo, for example, they have a pizza oven that's not in an enclosed building that operates every day. Which I think kind of brings up a broader question, as you pointed out. When we're talking about CUPs, isn't it, am I right in that it's appropriate to issue a CUP to premises, to property, land use, to land? And then, and you brought up the instance of 18th Barrel and what Fran and Sean were proposing to do at Brewery 25 at Dante's thing over there on 4th Street, a piece of property. And then if the use permit granted to the property allows for food trucks, whether it's donuts or tacos, as you said, then that use permit would provide for the presence of food trucks, correct? So
Yes,
has
that's
anyone
right.
looked, and I'm assuming, I haven't seen it, I'm assuming Vertigo has a use permit. And the question is, have you looked at Vertigo's use permit and made a determination as whether or not it accommodates the presence of food trucks on a?
I don't believe they have a use permit. And
How can they be operating in the city without a use permit?
well, I mean, they have restaurants are permitted use in the district that they're in. And provided that they get a building permit to build that use and they get the health permits necessary. Not every single restaurant requires a use permit. So the conduct of that particular business may not need a use permit
I see.
unless one's called for in the zoning ordinance. And I don't believe that the way that business is being conducted has required a use permit. So I'm willing to be corrected in that regard. If they do have a use permit for outdoor dining, then I would love to have that happen.
Well, they currently have outdoor dining, as everyone in this room knows, that we enjoy.
Question is whether there's a use.
Whether there's a
permit.
use permit that goes along with it. But we can agree that if Vertigo had a use permit that provided for food trucks like 18th Barrel has currently. By the way, I've got the condition from May 2021 for Brewery 25. It's condition number 7 in their CUP. Food trucks may be parked on site to provide food service if the food trucks are parked fully within private property and not located on any city street or right of way, which is consistent with those 140A and 140B. A food truck operator shall show proof of a valid San Juan business license and health permit by San Benito County standard. Both licenses shall clearly be visible. That sounds like a pretty reasonable condition to me. So if there was a Vertigo CUP, and if it had a condition like that, we'd be in business. Everything would be fine. Does 18 Farrell have a conditional use
The
permit similar to
question,
that one, by the way?
look, just to answer that question. Just generally speaking, maybe. Because it depends on the, excuse me. It depends on the nature of the use permit itself. So if the use permit provided that flexibility, or if it was very specific as to the nature of the outdoor dining. And remember I talked about changes in intensity of use. Or changes in the character of the use that might make that use permit need to be amended. So either it's a valid permit and incorporates or is flexible enough to incorporate that particular land use, then that would be something that, would be, be able to accommodate that. But if not, if it's not that flexible, if it's very specific as to the, like you mentioned, the 20 barrel Route 25 use permit, and very specific as to what was allowed there. And I know there was a site development plan that went with that use permit that was attached.
I'll bet.
So if the Vertigo had a use permit attached to a site development permit that made them specified exactly what was supposed to occur, how much, and when, and so forth, then and that included a opportunity for food truck, then I think it's a done deal.
Have you had a chance to review the use permit for 18 Farrell? Do they have one?
Yes.
Now, why would they have a use permit? That's a permitted use.
Yeah.
Why would they have a CUP and Vertigo wouldn't? Because I think your reason for Vertigo may not have
I
one.
don't
is
know the answer to that question. I do know that 18th Barrel has a permit that allows the use of their patio for food service.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're eager to hear the public comment, but it seems that if the solution to the problem is to get, I really don't see the practicality of having every single food truck that comes to San Juan, like for 18 Farrell, or for Vertigo, or for the Teatro, to get their own conditional use permit for a food truck. That's nonsensical. because
Okay, so here's the thing about.
it should tie to the property, I think.
Yes,
it's
that's
gonna
what I was
rotate.
gonna say is that you have a use permit that because the food truck or the trailer itself isn't part of the land ownership. What I suggested is that there be a legal link between the property owner and the trailer or truck that comes on the property in some way. So in order to associate with the business, I think there has to be some instrument there that links them somehow. Either there is an agreement of some kind that allows them to come on between the owners and the vendor, or the property owner or lessee with the property owner's permission obtains the use permit. And the reason for that is that we need a way to bind the recipient of the use permit to conditions of approval in order to make them legally enforceable. But we can't bind someone to conditions of approval that doesn't have a legal authority to be on the property that's not been vested in some way. So we're looking for that as sort of a first threshold for these use permits. And so it's not the vendor that gets the use permit. It's the property owner or lessee, or if there's a strong enough legal instrument there, then perhaps the vendor might have that opportunity to accept conditions of approval on behalf of the lessee or on behalf of the owner. So it's kind of an important consideration. And like I said, because all these things run with the land. So for this reason, the violation that we're talking about here in this respect is and the compliance that we're looking for is for there to be a use permit that's tied to the land somehow. And so that's what we're looking for any site,
Well,
whether it be 18th Barrel or the Baines property or any other.
but it's my understanding, I heard that the food truck itself was cited by the city the other day, and they're not the landowner, so why was Vertigo not cited?
Well, they were cited for a couple of different things. They were cited for not having they were cited for not having a business license for the first part. And they were also cited, and I believe that they were cited for violation of a portion of our ordinance that deals with where food trucks can be. So, that's my understanding with respect to these citations. No, there weren't. Vertigo's was given a compliance order. Don't believe they were cited. Probably not, because what we're dealing with here is code enforcement. A code enforcement process involves a personal visit, a conversation first. First is an inquiry, then there's an answer, then we get a conversation where there's advice given about how things should go. And then if there is conflict with that advice, then there is a compliance order, which is a fancy way of saying, here's a warning for you. And not a citation. There's no financial penalty there. But then when that compliance order is not adhered to, as it says, here's what you must do to avoid this. And so the third step after all that occurs is actual citation. And that we're pretty far down the line. There's a lot of conversation that occurs with our code enforcement officer. There may be a compliance order. There may even be a revision to a compliance order. Based on conversations that are held between the property owner and the code enforcement officer that we have.
Yeah, I have your compliance order dated February 28th, 2023. And it concludes by saying, please cease operating this food truck trailer business after today in the city of San Juan Bautista until you apply for and obtain any all required permits.
Right.
If you have any questions, contact me, Officer Brown. But it doesn't say what permits. Was it a business permit only? Or
Well,
by this compliance order, are you suggesting that the recipient, Hopper Brothers, obtain a conditional use permit? Is that part of the permits plural?
I'm not sure what's referenced in that.
I read it to you. Until you obtain any all required permits. That's all it says.
Okay.
So, okay, that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And anyone else have comments?
I'm a little nervous about going after that, but what I wanted to kind of address is not necessarily the food truck, but the parklet, which is another hot topic that we'll be opening up. And so one of the things that a couple of us were just kind of discussing, that if the parklets, which was a city council decision, is not able to come back as far as the restaurants, coming up with some type of an alternative. Being raised in Europe for almost 10 years, one of the things I loved about Europe is when they would close down the streets and it was a non-vehicle road, everybody would come out and actually eat into the streets. And so they would bring the chairs, and so it would be a substitute for the parklets, and maybe closing down part of Third for, just like 2 blocks, so that all the restaurants can bring out their seating and maybe food trucks. But then just to have that pleasant stringing lights, And just really make it an inviting place for people to come and visit San Juan Bautista. Just as an alternative from the park, let's have the street closed just for a few months in the summertime when it's warm and people can enjoy the outdoor season. So that was just an idea that I wanted to share.
Anyone else? Do you have any comments?
I'll reserve my comments and questions after we hear from the public.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right, all right, then I'll go last. For me, I would love to float that idea that Michelle was stating. I think we could get the best of both worlds. I would like to see Third Street essentially blocked off during the summer season when the town is busy and, you know, people are out. It allows our restaurants to and business owners to participate in al fresco dining. I think it's a little more inviting to our town. You know, I do hear from the public time to time that we are a tourism town and we want to welcome those from outside. And so I think that would be a fantastic idea of having this al fresco dining like you see in Europe. And then during the winter months or the slow season, we reopen Third Street back to its normal routes as you know, rain and winds come into town. You know, so for me, I think that would be a happy medium. And so, you know, like I wanted to discuss that with the planning commission and see if that's a feasible solution to address the parklet situation now that city council has made their decision. Another item that I would also like to look into is also pooling the ordinances for the food trucks. Looking at that and trying to see whether the current ordinance aligns with the city and what we need now that we're looking at food trucks. And you know, in the case of Hoppa Bros, you know, I think they are a really great business for town. You know, I do a lot of running and walking, and on Fridays and weekends, I see that the truck is inviting, brings a lot of people to our town. And I think that's what we want for the city of San Juan, you know, some fresh businesses, some fresh, something fresh in town. And me personally, I welcome them. And so if that's what it takes, maybe looking at those ordinances like Commissioner DeVries has mentioned, maybe it doesn't make sense in certain areas. And so maybe we can make some amendments to that.
Yeah, just a little nuance. The city doesn't prohibit food trucks. We don't. We do allow them. So I think it's important to recognize that we do. But that said, there needs to be the appropriate solution based on the regulations that we have. So I think your idea about looking at the ordinances that we have, looking to see how well they work and whether they are really accomplishing the intent there, looking at the intent to make sure that they are aligned with what's best for the city is really a good exercise. And I know it's been done in the past. I don't think anything came of it at the time. Maybe 4 or 5 years ago, there was an effort to look at food vendors and food trucks and so forth. And I don't think nothing was done outside the current regulations. And so maybe the way that the city approached it was that we decided that we would exercise some flexibility with respect to when we say it's associated or when we say outdoor dining, you know, to pull those in to that definition by practice, you know, just practically speaking in terms of how we practice or how we operate the codes that we have. So I'm not sure about that, but it seems like that's probably what occurred. Because I mean, the trend for this type of dining is not brand new, but it's relatively recent. So I would expect the city's interpretation to also be relatively recent in that regard. But yeah, it's a good idea. And we can bring it back for a study session if you want. If that's your intent. Sort of look at the whole issue, look at the regulations, and then you can, you know, kind of imagine, you know, the kind of events that you're suggesting and make a recommendation to the council for things that, you know, you might like to see happen.
Yeah, I think that would.
And that's all public, you know, debate.
Yeah, so I think that would be the intent to do a study session. I would like to see that item on the agenda for our next meeting. Just to look at those regulations and see and determine whether, you know, closing off Third Street would be a feasible solution. That, you know, which is whether it's a good idea for this town or not, and if it's possible.
Yeah, and the other thing is that, as we look at the study, unless the city council is going to say, we want to suspend, for some reason, adopt an ordinance that, an urgency ordinance or some other kind of ordinance that suspends these regulations, they remain in effect. So, that everybody can understand that, because the opportunity is there to do something different, doesn't mean that we're already there.
Got it. And then one last comment, I think, also I'd like to float the idea, if we did close off Third Street, that we could encourage a little more, events in town. It would make it easier to do special events. And kind of kick that off to help our business owners in town to generate, you know, traffic. Any other comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. It seems like there's maybe a danger of putting too much on our plate. And let's take the low hanging fruit first. As regards closing off Third Street, so I was on the city council when that was all done, and I kind of led the charge on that, and I called it the lane and so forth, and I analogized to Santana Row. I don't know if you guys have been up there, it's really nice. We had outdoor dining and sidewalk dining and everything else, right? It's beautiful. But my understanding, Brian, and correct me if I am wrong, but the city is intent on embarking on a Third Street master plan redesign, big effort. Is that right?
That's correct. And one of the things that came out of the Economic Development Citizens Advisory Committee, and I think some of the people that have had parklets contributed to this sort of idea, and that is that the Third Street Master Plan, the parklet experience itself, that is that outdoor dining experience, would be used as a template to you know, sort of model the streetscape
Right.
for Third Street. So it's not like once the parklets are gone, that whole concept is just being trashed.
No, I think the opposite's true.
Exactly.
But, you know, in terms of the commissioner's sentiments about increasing those opportunities, if you will, and designs and so forth, isn't it so that that's part and parcel of what the Third Street Master Plan program is going to be about? And why would we take that up in advance of that? If anything that we would spend our time doing in a study session is going to be replicated or duplicated in the Third Street Master Plan. In other words, shouldn't we just hold off for the Third Street Master Plan? When's that anticipated to start, by the way?
Well, we wanted to start this year. We need to look at the funding that we have for it.
I was going to say, is there
Yeah,
funding allocated?
we have
for it?
applied for, there is money in the budget
Okay.
for it. But we also have some other planning objectives that we want to tie to this program. So we're not just looking at Third Street in a vacuum. We're looking at Third Street in its relationship to the Alameda, city's gateways, and so forth, in order to make that streetscape fully functional. So there's some important things that we have to look at that we applied for a grant this year to fold in, and if we get that grant, then that Third Street Master Plan program will be accelerated. And so it is in the budget, mid-year budget. I think there's $215,000 in there for the master plan. Then there's another $350,000 in grant funds that we're seeking to make that, you know, do what I just explained
Wonderful.
through Caltrans. So there's a big program that we're hoping to do. If we don't get that grant this year, we're going to try again next year. It's that important. But what I'm, and answer your question though, I think what's being discussed here is more of a an activity sort of scenario rather than a complete redesign and a permanent fix. I think, you know, the idea that I understand is that we're gonna figure out ways to gin up the activities on Third Street and make them more regular and make them more inviting and make them more varied, more exciting, that kind of.
Well, and I'm not sure exactly what the concepts are, but if they include
Nobody knows yet.
closing Third Street for all summer long, that's, I think, more than just an event. But aside from Third Street redesign and ginning things up and so forth, it seems to me that the whole Third Street European style dining, which I've always called it too, but I love that, like Italy, I love that. I've been saying that for a long time. Those issues are, I think, separate and apart from the one that brings us all here today, or brings them all here today, which is what to do about food trucks, Hopper Brothers in particular. We've agreed already that 140A and B do not apply because in this instance, the food truck was on private property. Then we're left with 030, which is curious. As I said, all uses shall be conducted entirely within an enclosed building. I'm not sure what that means exactly. So if we wanted to have a study session on how to improve San Juan's current ordinances to specifically address food trucks on private property, then I'd be all in favor of that.
Thank you. Any other comments from the planning commission? Nope. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna go and open it up for public comment.
We do have comments on Zoom.
All right, perfect. So we'll start here within chambers. If you have a public comment regarding this topic, we would love to hear it. Just see our clerk or step up to the podium after.
All right, first we have Ellen Waddell.
Welcome. Thanks for coming
Hi.
out.
As I had told you before, I am biased here because my neighbors are the Hopper Bros. And we have known them for decades. And as I was looking at this ordinance, a few things struck me. That the city has a right to say whether or not food trucks are here or not, because they can be here and they can. One of the things that I've not liked is having businesses come in just to take advantage of what's been built here, and they don't have an investment in our city and in the residents. And as I thought about that, and again, I'm biased, the Ricketts family, we've been neighbors for decades with that family. And I told you, I've known these guys have grown up and we've known them since little guys. So it struck me that if you were going to adjust this ordinance, one of the things that needs to be considered is the investment of the operators of a food truck to this city and the residents and the brick and mortar merchants who pay such a large amount to be here and do business. And I thought of a few things. And first of all, I would love to see a food truck operator be a resident who has an investment in this city. The second thing is I would expect it to be something that is unique and doesn't take advantage of a brick and mortar, their business. They shouldn't be just throwing tacos out like Doña Esther's and Jardina's. They should be having something that's very unique and different. And I have notes here, I have to go back to that, and that they shouldn't duplicate, they should be very unique in what they do. And I think the Hopper Bros covers every bit of that, particularly the reason they bring such excitement to our city is because of their unique food. It's exciting, it's fun, we know them so well. And I have friends who drive here to get their food, and they're here in town, and who knows what else they'll do when they are here in town. So I'd like to submit those ideas to you as considerations as you look at allowing food trucks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jolene Cozio.
What do I get to do?
Welcome.
Ready, go on, take I did a lot of the same research that some of you did as far as looking up the conditional conditions of approval for the 18th barrel and came across the same thing. A food truck operator shall show proof of a valid San Juan Bautista license and health permit issued by the county of San Benito. I really thought Hopper Brothers had both of those. So if I'm mistaken, they need a business license and a health permit issued by the county of San Benito. I hope they have it. I think they do. What I don't understand is why you would go after a business that is bringing people to other businesses in the city that the property that they are on is happy to have them because it brings business to them. People are not eating at the truck. They're taking it home, or they're going to a park, or they're going into Vertigo and eating the food. So, you know, all this dining stuff doesn't quite apply to me. And going after a good business is bad business. Do we want to be Solvang? Or do we want to be some tight little community issuing random citations to people? And the same code enforcement officer who gave them their first warning puts out little green tags on cars and never follows up on them. There are little green tags out there who have been there for months and even years. But this one was followed up on almost immediately. And I don't know. You don't like the Japanese? I don't know what the problem is. You know, it's a real problem if we're going after successful businesses who are bringing other businesses to the city. And I think the things that are cited do not really apply. I haven't been to a meeting in a long time, but this brought me out. And as far as the parklets go, they should be allowed for the restaurants only. That's their main purpose, and they should still be allowed. And when you're looking at revamping the downtown, you need to be careful. For 100 years, however long movies have been made, people have been coming to San Juan to film Westerns. You change it too much, you're not going to have that activity. And I think it's a cool activity. I think anything that brings business to San Juan and money into the city is a good thing. If you have to change the ordinance, change the ordinance. But I don't think an ordinance really needs to be changed. I think we need to change the attitude of the city government.
Thank you.
Monica Ramirez.
Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Monica Ramirez, owner of 18th Barrel. 18th Barrel has been mentioned quite a bit today. I do have a conditional use permit. I do appreciate all food trucks. They are a very well, great addition to my company, but only not my company, but just to the community. Like Jolene said, it's just a welcoming to people that come out and look for different types of food. It keeps my customers there longer. It's just a great addition. And as far as the parklets go, I think outdoor dining, Inacas and Doñas especially, is great to have the parklets there. I enjoy my parklet, and it brings a great vibe, but my main concern is mainly for the restaurants. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aaron Rogers, or excuse me, Brickett.
Welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm Aaron Ricketts, and I firstly just want to say thank you everyone for being here and my brothers and I started Hopper Brothers about 6 months ago now. Based on the principle of good vibes, good food and loving the community. And when I came to start that business model, I was basically turned away and showed bylaws that I couldn't understand. So we thought maybe one route might be to operate on private property with a valid health permit and permission from that Vertigo specifically to do that as an accessory. And we were able to do that for probably 5 months until all of a sudden it became an issue, which was a huge surprise to us because in that time, I've had the pleasure of serving every person in this room for the most part, time and time again. And I generally greet everybody here with a hug, and I love seeing them. It's the reason why I'm here. You know, my brothers and I can go and tackle bigger counties, bigger markets, you know, we should be doing that on Friday. But we love this town. You know, I couldn't imagine a Friday where Ellen doesn't come and get a mochi waffle because it's gluten free, you know? It's on the menu because it's gluten free for her, you know? And I hate the tension that's in this room right now because it shouldn't be. You know, Hopper Brothers to me is a very happy thing. Everyone loves Hopper Brothers. I'm here because I don't need to fight for my business because I can operate elsewhere. We'll be okay. I'm here for the people of San Juan. I'm here to fight for them, you know? Nobody wants to see us go, and I don't want to see us go, but I'm sorry, you can kind of tell my voice, it's taking some serious emotional toll on myself and my family. We're being targeted and attacked in a very unprofessional manner. And you can see that as evidenced by the tension in this room and the tension brought to this situation that could be resolved in a very professional manner. And it sounds like it has been in the past, but not with us. We're simply asking for a business license. That's it. If any brick and mortar business in this town has an issue with me, they've never voiced it to me, and I consider most of the hospitality members of this town as an extension of my family. We support each other to the fullest. That's another reason why I'm here. Not only for my business, but to support Anaka, Barrel 18 on the park that's Doña Esther's. I myself obviously know firsthand the overhead costs of running a restaurant, of running a business. It's obscene. It's obscene. And then to throw all these crazy ordinances, it almost makes it impossible to do business. And we just really need to change that. I would love to have San Juan be a headquarters for us. I mean, how many people, young people with a new business, have you ever heard say that? That they want to be headquartered in a small town, right? But it's because we have strong standing roots in this town, in this city. We love the city. My grandmother lived their entire life in this city. Grandfather and my great grandparents, they died in this city. I'm here because of them. I don't want to support larger markets. I want to support San Juan. But I just simply am not given the opportunity. And then all of a sudden, when it looks like there's a little bit of pressure on, there seems to be some avenues forming, but they don't seem to be free of having to involve another business, which is what we're not too fond of. We'll never park on the streets. You know, we'll never pull up somewhere random and park. You know, we're here purely as a compliment to Vertigo.
I'm sorry, yours 3 minutes, Sarah.
Oh, yeah. Are we timing? Yes, it doesn't seem like anybody else got time.
As the chair, I will allow,
Thank you.
like, yeah,
Thank you
we'll
very
allow,
much.
we won't put a time on everyone on this topic.
I mean, I won't take much longer. But I would like to see a future where I could consider having a business in this city. Right now, I can't. Especially given how some of the hospitality ventures are treated in this city. It's crazy to me. I mean, I don't see how it would be possible to have a business here. And we're willing to work with the city. We really are. But everything is maybe, or everything is very confusing. Nothing is seems to be straightforward, so, we're simply just asking for a business license, just like any other county in the state of California. Every other county offers, they open up their arms to us, and it's a very easy process. I don't understand why that just can't be the way here, especially given that we have a San Juan address and that we're locals. I don't even feel welcome in my own city. It's just kind of scary to me. So, sorry, I won't take up much more of your time, but thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you.
Fran, it's Harris, please.
Welcome.
Good evening, Brewery 25, a local business here. I just wanted to share a quick story. It wasn't too long ago. We did a project with a brewery in Santa Cruz County. And to celebrate the beer release, we had an event at the 18th Barrel. And I wanted to kind of bring people from Santa Cruz to San Juan. So I had a shuttle coming, and I also brought a food truck from Santa Cruz. So I did my homework and I asked the food truck, go to the city and get your business license. The food truck went to the city, got their business license, said how cute it was, and everything was fine. There was not a problem. So we really need to continue to allow food trucks on private property. That's not broken. I like that we're going to revisit it, right? So, because I think about just last year, you guys approved micro kitchens. And so as Brian's talking about the conditional use permit, about we know where they are, what time they are, what's going on, but we have these micro kitchens that there's nothing about that. So I think it's important to revisit food trucks now, but for now, it's not broken. Allow food trucks on private property, period. And then on top of that, as far as outdoor dining, we really do need to keep our 2 restaurants going. And the way that we're going to keep them going is keeping that parklet outside dining going. And there's a lot of talk about 3rd Street and about this plan and that plan. But the reality is, who knows when that's going to come. So in the meantime, let's just let them go and let them continue to do business. They are the biggest part of our town. And so I hope that we can get past this. And honestly, I heard a lot from city staff tonight about how everything works and what permit and all that. And honestly, it makes me sad because that's all you had to do with Papa Brothers is sit down and explain permits and how to do what and what they needed. And you didn't do that. So I think that makes me really sad.
Thank
like
you.
to answer. No, I'd like to, I know this is public. I'd like to just answer a couple of questions here. First of all, the permit process was explained to the Papa Brothers. Second of all, they were, I'm sorry, but we opened the door and offered to sit down with Papa Brothers. I'm not gonna be defensive, I'm just gonna state facts. And I'm sorry, but it is not true. It is not true that we did not attempt to work with Papa Brothers. That is not true.
Thank you. Any other comments from chambers?
Yes, we have Jim Leibold.
It's Jim Leibold, 9664 Belleville Road.
Welcome.
So a couple items. First off, to parklets and food trucks. My position on the food trucks is they are an amenity to town. They should be embraced. They have a business license and they're passed by the health department. And they're on private property. They should be allowed. They're complimentary. They draw people to this town and those people spend money here. Papa Brothers is local. You couldn't find a better business than a food truck and a mobile kitchen. We should distance ourselves from outdoor dining and a food truck or a mobile kitchen. Vertigo has outside dining. Papa Brothers offers packaged food to go. That's not outdoor dining. That's grab and go. Please keep that in mind. Number two, parklets. City of San Juan Bautista erred originally in allowing parklets by retail establishments. It was designed to allow hospitality businesses to operate during COVID. If they want to fix the problem, if the city wants to fix that problem, then fix it by eliminating the retail parklets and allowing the hospitality parklets to remain until a point in time when this city is ready to implement the Third Street Master Plan. And by that, I mean shovel ready. Not talk about it for the next 10 years. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rena Hill.
Welcome.
Rena Hill DeVries, 405 Fifth Street. I just want to talk about, I'm new to San Juan, 5 years. And I have to say the outdoor dining is exciting. I love it. I want it to stay. Also, food trucks are not new. They're a great attraction and exciting. We plan every week to go there. And I love it. The community loves it. And I am hearing around town and reading that there's a lot of red tape and spend a lot of time. Brian, is it talking about all the reasons why they can't be, sorry, is your name Brian? Oh, sorry, I'm talking to you. You spent a lot of time talking about why they can't operate and all this red tape, but I just think to simplify it, you could just figure out how to make it happen for them. Everyone loves it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have any more speaker cards. Then Nikki Bear.
Welcome.
Thank you. Candy Bear, 5 Donner Street. Wow, it's a tough act to follow. And I'm worked up to as a lot of people are. As a 20-year resident of San Juan, I want and I expect our city to be more business friendly. And I want our commissioners and our city council to represent us. This is our town. I just feel that our staff, who I think are most recently from Salinas, which is the county seat of Monterey, we don't want to be Monterey. We don't want to be Salinas. We like who we are. That's why we came here. I'm very disappointed that these third generation San Juaners, they've got deeper roots than anybody here except for maybe David. Your family goes way back. But come on, how lucky are we that these young people came home and want to start a business and they're doing a good job at it. Everybody loves them. The competition loves them. I mean, they all work together. This is San Juan, it's family. They are the future, in fact, by the way. They're the future of this town. And how sad it will be if they can't stay here and work. This Economic Development Committee, they should be helping. They should be helping walking new business owners through the nuts and bolts of starting a business. I mean, if they've been cited 3 times, somebody should be explaining what's going on. This is uncharted territory. They probably don't fit the mold of any other kind of food truck. I don't see how they could be affiliated with a specific brick and mortar business. They've been to JACL. JACL has invited them. Historical Society invited them to offer food at our meeting. I want to see us work with them. As a resident, I demand that. I want us to work with them and make this happen. We're working against them. I think a lot of people walk to the properties where the truck is located. I don't think parking is going to be an issue. It's not that parking hasn't been an issue for so many things downtown. I don't know why suddenly this would be a parking issue. Anyway, I'm just very disappointed with how things have gone and hope that you can change it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in chambers have a comment? All right, so we're gonna move on to Zoom to see if there's any comments there.
We have a number of comments. What I'd like to do, I think, is to start with Jared Gallagher.
Good evening, City Council. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. For those that don't know me, my name is Jared Gallagher. I'm the owner of the Smoke Point Restaurant. I am going to take my time because there's a lot that needs to be packed here, but I will be as fast as I can. First of all, it needs to be known that I operate multiple businesses in multiple counties and have cooked in 6 continents. So I'm pretty knowledgeable about how a lot of things happen for restaurants, not for cities. Secondly, there are more than just 3rd Street businesses in your town. So things affect things on 4th Street as well. Thirdly, closing off the weekend 3rd Street would only make sense if you somehow enforce some sort of enforcement to the landowners that are misproperly using their parking lots and closing them off even to their own customers, flooding the streets with parking. But on to this point, because I think it's very important. There are 3 things that I want to point out where I think is deplorable. And I want to make it known that I don't know the Hoppe brothers. I don't know their family. So I am non-biased as much as I can be as a business operator in San Juan that happens to do food. First of all, actions by the city and code enforcement needs to be preemptive. Yeah, it's a very important part of it. The second part of it, it needs to be consistent. And we are not consistent. The third part has to be compounded on trust. So I want to make a few mentions here that are not true. And for the people that are going to be called out, I apologize. It's not my intention, but I don't believe that the earnest is for the brick and mortar buildings. I personally heard members in this room state the words that the promoter needs to make money. So we are outsiting. I've done business in San Juan for 2.5 years. I've never seen code enforcement cruising around on the weekends, citing people for any ordinance because they're selling soap out front, but now we're doing it. So we are not preemptive. The second thing, I'll get back to the consistent thing, but the second thing is trust. Now, if you walk up to the Hoppe Brothers truck, and I have, you'll quickly notice that there's a Santa Clara permit on their truck. So these are people that understand and know. And the city and everyone in this room's got to understand that if they don't have a permit, they didn't go through the health department, then you let them know and they go do that, and that's their earnest. But in this particular circumstance, as somebody who does not bring people to my business when there's events in town, and it infringes on my business because y'all bring 48 barbecue restaurants and line the street with it and dump all the parking on 4th Street and just pretend like I should get parking tickets because I can't access my own business, but this is great for the town. And I'm kind of quiet about it. But the first part here is to assume in some way, shape, or form that this family and these gentlemen don't understand what they need to do. Now, if they haven't done it, cite them, fine. But Vertigo had no knowledge, and they were doing this weeks and months before. And there is inconsistency in this meeting on how we're talking about who's supposed to be responsible. We don't even know who's supposed to be responsible. We don't know what we're citing people for. And I want to allude to something, some targeting that's being done in this beautiful city that's very challenging to operate in. Code enforcement actually called environmental health on me for garbage cans that are on the corner that don't belong to me, because the city can't get its act together and figure out how to assess egress and make it mandatory for property owners. So everyone blames me for those, but they're not even mine. But code enforcement took it upon themselves when there was no code violated to call environmental health on me. And environmental health showed up and threw their hands in the air saying they're clean, they're maintained, they're not taking up any parking spaces, but yet I'm being targeted. So we are targeting people here, and it doesn't make sense. So I don't understand how anyone in this room can logistically and honestly say to themselves that we went through any preemptive measures. You could have said a promoter was coming to town. Here's the codes. Here's the ordinances. We expect you to operate within them. If you don't, you're going to be cited. That's not what happened. We sent people out on that weekend in earnest for the promoter. So, and I quote, the promoter needs to make money. And so I state cause as a business owner in a brick and mortar building that doesn't violate any of these codes, but you are being inconsistent to your codes, to the enforcement of them, and the purpose of them, which I believe is self-cited and self-serving. When it comes to trust, the city has got to start by trusting the business owners first. Now, I can't state to their purpose of how they didn't get a business license, and it's difficult to get landlords to rent you a restaurant and all of those purposes. But I would urge the city and this council to be very, very careful of how you approach telling business owners what they can and cannot do on private property, because ordinances can be changed. They're not under your control. They can be changed, and they should be changed in this circumstance. And those are private businesses operating on private property that are increasing water use and all the other things that go along with it. So you could get any sort of individual that has half a mind and challenge all these ordinances. And the response from this council of, well, we make the best decision, is very ambiguous. So it is not appropriate or ethical to your business owners in your town to come out and start levying codes and fines just for a promoter. Now, you let the clock shop guy, the last time we had an event in town next to my building, rent that out to no fewer than 8 different participants, and no sightings were made. No problem with that at all. But for some reason, this food truck Hopper Brothers thing is pissing someone off, and it's not right. I'll end it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to make a comment, Jared, just to make sure this is the planning commission, and I just want to let you know that if you are intending to let the city council know, I would also suggest voicing your comments to them at their upcoming meeting.
Yeah, they're probably all going to hear it at this point.
Got it. No, but yeah, I will make sure it gets forwarded to them.
You give me a forum and I'm coming after it.
I will make sure that someone from staff reaches out to you to get you the proper information.
Oh, appreciate it. Thanks. I love being educated.
Thank you. Next, any more comments on Zoom, staff?
We have a Naka Japanese restaurant.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Can you
we
hear
can
me
hear
now?
you.
Yep, welcome.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you for having me. My name's Steve. I'm from 8 Awani Street. I'm one of the owners of Yanaka Japanese restaurant in town. And I'm at Smoke Point. My hat's off to you. You're dialed in. High fives. That's gonna be a hard one to follow, but I just wanted to call in and show my support and our support, the hospitality committee. I believe I could speak for everyone there. We love Hopper Brothers, and they are being targeted by members of the city employment that don't even live here. They're not from around here. They don't know. I don't know. I just wanted to call in and before I get myself in trouble, show our support for Hopper Brothers. If they were making teriyaki chicken, I would still show my support for Hopper Brothers. But I mean, why do we want to scare away a family that can go anywhere and be successful, yet they're willing to stay here and bring people to our town and economy to our town that desperately needs it? And we should be supporting them 100%. The city should be welcoming them and helping them instead of scaring them away. So that's it. We love you, Hopper Brothers. Fight the fight. Fight
Thank
the fight.
you.
And I don't know why we have an assistant city manager, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Thanks for your comments.
Thank you.
Staff, any more comments on Zoom?
We have Margot Tankersley.
Margot, welcome.
Hi, Margot Tankersley. I'm the owner of Margot's Ice Cream Parlor. Been here almost 27 years, seen a lot come and go. I am for Hopper Brothers. We do get quite a few customers saying they're coming to town just for them, and they do go up and down 3rd Street and all around town. Also, I'm not in favor of closing 3rd Street. We already have a problem with parking, and that's one of the reasons I didn't even put a parklet up in front of my business, because I wanted my customers to drive up and be able to leave or park. Sometimes they do have to park on the next block, and they do roam around town as well. I also asked them if they've been to a couple different businesses to get them walking a couple blocks on both sides of me. So please think very hard about closing 3rd Street. Do not do it. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And next we have Sean Fitzharris.
Welcome, Sean.
Hi there. How's it going, everybody? Sean Fitzharris from Brewery 25. Our business is at 106 3rd Street. I have a lot of similar feelings that everyone's already expressed, but definitely in regards to consistency, attempting to, I'll call it threaten, the compliance order with specific ordinances that don't even apply to the situation. That's frustrating. I just think we have to do our homework before we go. And again, don't escalate it to code enforcement, running around taking pictures of people and, basically trying to get people in trouble, which is not what we need in town. We need people that are useful, that provide solutions, that want to help bring businesses here, keep businesses here. Not everyone's going to do everything right all the time, especially when they're just starting out. So help them out, like turn the turtle, right? Like, why are we sitting here trying to blow people up? And it shouldn't be that way. It should be a welcoming community. Otherwise, honestly, this community is going to die. Like if we lose the restaurants and the food, there isn't a ton of draw here. There's the antique business isn't what it used to be. I mean, just the retail is not what it used to be, right? I think so. Again, we just have to be careful about what we're doing and what we're enforcing. I do believe that we need consistency. I'm not saying, I'm much like with Jared, if someone's doing something wrong, yeah, I mean, have a conversation with them and eventually cite them if they're not fixing it, right? But we have to follow rules. But anyhow, I think the approach just needs to change, much like someone said earlier, the attitude of the city, specifically the city manager, needs to change. I think we need to look at, being more welcoming to people and having conversations, being part of the community, like come here on the weekend, come hang out, enjoy these restaurants, talk to the people, don't hide in City Hall. So that's my thought.
Thank you, Sean.
I just want to make sure that Anaka doesn't have more comment to make. And if, there. Any more comment from Anaka?
So, okay, I don't, is anyone from Anaka there that could unmute themselves to comment?
Okay, we're not getting a response there. So the only last person I have is Don Reynolds.
Don, welcome.
So I have been listening and I am learning a lot. I want to say first and foremost that San Juan Bautista has a reputation for telling businesses you're not welcome. And these are the laws that I came into in 2019. We have a formulary retail business restriction that the city council looked at last week, 2 weeks ago. We're not going to allow a Baskin Robbins. We're not going to allow a Starbucks. We're not going to allow a McDonald's. We're not going to allow a Taco Bell. So when we talk about defending the bricks and mortar in our town, Brian and I came into a set of laws that were established before our arrival. And it's my job to enforce every law in the city of San Juan Bautista. And if you don't want me to do my job, then fire me. Go for it. But right now, the laws say I have to do X, Y, and Z. And so code enforcement has to do X, Y, and Z. And so I'm really, really glad that we're having this conversation because I think this was an issue that needed to be brought out and debated. And darn it, tonight in my democratic, oh, God bless democracy, we're having a debate and it's awesome. My degree is in political science. Tonight's discussion is all about what I studied and practiced for the last 40 years. And I'm glad to be here as your city manager listening to this because this is awesome. Margot, most of your customers ride on buses that park across the street from my office. Monday through Friday. They're called fourth graders. They're awesome. You know, I don't know why we need assistant city manager. Well, I would welcome Steve from Anaka's to spend a day in my chair. Jared from Smoke Point, you've been frustrated from day one, and you've been upset at the city more than once. And I totally respect that, and I'm listening to what you have to say. The rib cook-off, etc., competition, calling environmental health on Smoke Point. I get all that stuff. These are all responses to citizens complaining. We don't have time to invent problems, and we didn't invent the problem with a business operating on the property of another business. We simply thought, people kept saying, what about 18th Brewery? And as Monica so eloquently expressed, she has a conditional use permit. So there is a process. Remember that Dan DeVries brought up a letter from February saying, please come to City Hall and help us work this out. That was in February. It's April. Happy Easter. It's April. So I don't mean to lecture and I don't want to get on my grandstand, and I'm maybe a little bit emotional about this, but I grew up supporting businesses in downtown Salinas, and they are beginning to thrive. And I want to do the same for the city. So I'm listening and I'm taking notes, and I'm not critical. I just want to make a constructive, productive lesson from this conversation, from the conversation that can occur all day, April 14th, this Friday. We're having a community workshop about what's important to this city. So please come and talk to us then. And then we're having our city council meeting on the 18th. So you have ample opportunity in the next week to vent your feelings and help the city council and the planning commission understand these issues. So thank you so much for taking your time and making a democracy out of San Juan Bautista. That's all I have to say. Thank you, Chair, for recognizing me.
Thank you, Don.
We have Jackie Morris Lopez.
Welcome, Jackie.
And this is Jackie Morris Lopez, 46 Mission Street, council member. I just want to thank the speakers and the Planning Commission for this very honest dialogue, and the business owners. And I love Hapa Brothers. I love their kimchi rice. It's my favorite, but everything there they have is good. And I just feel that I hope that we can rework this ordinance and really allow, food trucks to have a streamlined process to be able to operate. And I feel, I myself as a citizen and now as an elected official kind of scratch my head because I feel like a lot of times code enforcement is a very thankless job, but I think they also need to be aware that there's a lot of impression of what people perceive when they perceive and when things really happen that ordinances are not being dealt out fairly and consistently. And my feedback is consistency needs to be the rule of the day, and harassment needs to go away. We need to be welcoming of all businesses, whether they come on a food truck, whether they're brick and mortar. We need to support all of our businesses in town, all of our eateries. I understand COVID was here. I understand there's also the economy, but I think, it'd be wonderful if we could have a locals day to support all of our businesses, food trucks, brick and mortar. I don't know how that's going to look, but I think that we have better solutions that we can come together with besides parklets. Maybe there's something in there for temporary parklets. I don't know. I just think that we need to just be respectful and support all of our businesses. And I'm listening and I hear you and I thank you. And thanks again for your comments.
Thank you, Jackie. Any other comments on Zoom?
No more comments on Zoom.
Okay, and then also I would like
Oh,
to.
wait, we have one more. Clifton Matsuda.
Clifton, welcome.
Go ahead, Clifton. Are you there?
He looks unmuted.
He's unmuted.
Clifton, can you hear us? Clifton?
He just came on, so maybe.
Give him a.
Okay, we'll keep watching if Clifton comes back. Couple things I'd like to mention. First of all, when we ask a particular business to obtain a permit that's referenced in our ordinance, we are careful to make sure that we're applying those standards to everyone. And just like everyone else that has a outdoor dining vendor on their property, a use permit is required, and that's been explained several times to this particular business.
Are you required of the food truck or
Yeah.
required of the property owner?
Yes, the property owner and the requirement for a business license has also been explained to everyone that operates a business like this. So in order to operate in the city of San Juan Bautista, it's been explained to this particular business that and it's been explained several times that we are open to having them come in to go through the permit process so that we can explain what's necessary in order to be successful. We've explained that opportunity several times, and we haven't received a response that enables us to issue a permit or to put the required use permit before the planning commission. An application by Vertigo or anyone else to allow a vendor like this. So it may not be Vertigo, maybe somebody else that where this vendor wants to operate. Well, that property owner or lessee needs to come to the city and obtain a permit. And it's really we can suggest things for people. We can suggest procedures for people to follow, but we can't require them. We can't force them to do that. We can only say that here is what our codes require, and here is the process that we have available, and that's all we can do. That's the limit of our experience. And then the fall, the problem, the pitfall that we deal with all the time is the same thing that Jared Gallagher brought up, and that is this issue of consistency. So everyone else has to obtain a use permit that where they are going to allow a vendor like this on their property. And everybody else has to obtain a business license. And so if we love Hopper Brothers, I've had the food, it's wonderful. I had it first during the rib cook-off and you were participating in that event. But you know, because we like somebody a lot, doesn't mean that we give them the opportunity to proceed without the necessary permit, the permit that's required. And it's not like we're trying to kick people around. It's that we have this law on the book. It's irrefutable. It's there. It's there to read. It's been explained to the Hopper Brothers. A reference to that code section has been provided over and over again. And so we, like I said, the problem is that if we let a particular business proceed in the face of a permit requirement that hasn't been obtained, anybody else can come in and ask for the same expedience. And I think that if our law provides that, then we're in good shape. But if our law doesn't provide that, then all we're doing is making decisions based on our personal beliefs and our personal feelings about individual businesses. And that means that we are inherently creating a system that rewards bias. And for everyone that doesn't like bias in this room, that's had an opportunity to speak, believe me, I've been doing this for 40 years, and I've seen situations where this occurs, where there is bias because the laws are not applied uniformly. So if you don't want that situation to occur, if you don't want this situation where government officials make decisions based on their personal beliefs, then that's why we have these laws. And so I would offer Vertigos and Hopper Brothers to participate in the use permit process. I don't have an opinion about whether that permit should be issued. I can tell you that if I'm writing the staff report, I would recommend approval because I don't have any reason not to. I can't tell you that it's just going to be a blanket approval because we're going to look at circumstances involving the business itself. So, you know, and it's an objective look and it goes to the planning commission. And if you don't like what happened to the planning commission, it goes to the city council on appeal. If you don't like what the city council does on appeal, you can sue the city. You can go to court and seek remedy in court for something that you felt was unfair. So there's a process to follow here that's prescribed in the laws that we have. If you're going to ignore the laws that we have, you're not going to pursue compliance with what's been explained to you, our permit requirements, then the only course of action that we have is a compliance order and a citation. And I'm sorry, but that's the state of the city's regulations the way they are. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be changed. I think it would be a rewarding process to consider alternatives, but that has to occur first in order for us to provide an exemption of some kind, which is what I think people are asking for. It's just not possible with our current regulations.
Thank you, Brian. I'm just going to add something and real quick, I'll let you come up to the podium. In light of all this discussion that's come up, I think it's fair for me to see if staff can add, looking at code enforcement and run a report to see what they're issuing citations for. And generally, I don't know if we can run some type of report, but I would like to see if there are minorities on that report. Who is it? What kind of citations there are? And perhaps maybe recommend some type of training or awareness on how to deal with public and be fair. I'm also gonna see if we can add as another discussion item of having city staff also see if they can take a training on how to deal with, the city, the public. And perhaps doing a like, customer service oriented people's person on, working with them. So that's something I would like to see added onto the agenda or looked at for our next meeting. Since we're discussing this matter pertaining to this section. I have another comment from Papa's real quick and
Just really quick, I would just like it to be noted how fired up our government is, the city manager and our assistant city manager, how fired up they are right now. And that energy just goes towards us, and I wondering if anybody thinks that that is approachable. To me, that's not approachable. I can't approach that energy because it's taken an emotional toll on my body. I feel like I'm gonna have a panic attack right now. Because look at how fired up these guys are. They're just mad at us and we don't get it. We simply just want to follow the rules and provide good for the community. So I
Aaron,
don't understand how fired up everybody.
Aaron,
Brian, I'm not talking to you. Thank you.
Aaron, that's a good segue. Aaron, wait. I have a question for you. You've been accused of failing to obtain or making any effort to get a business permit from the city of San Juan Bautista. Is that true? Can you please describe your efforts to obtain a business permit?
I came in to obtain a business permit. I was handed old highlighted bylaws and told I couldn't do it. And the most upsetting thing to me was that that's all I was told. I would expect that a city that I live in would follow that up with. You can't do that, but there may be another avenue. A use permit. is
Well,
something-
let's just stick to what happened factually, if we
Yeah.
can, for a second.
Yeah.
So you came in to obtain a business permit and you said you were handed bylaws. Do you mean instead San Juan Municipal Code
Sorry,
sections?
municipal code section.
The same code sections that you were cited for?
I don't believe so. They've always changed, to be honest. They've always seen different codes.
But
I can't tell you
at
they're
any
all-
rate, they said because you're in violation of these, what was told to you was because you're in violation of these codes, you're ineligible
Yes,
to
correct.
receive a business permit.
Correct.
But you tried.
Yes.
Were you ever told that you needed to obtain what's called a conditional use permit?
No,
You
that's
yourself.
only been information within the last probably month or so, not even.
All right.
I didn't. If Brian and I knew we could have a use permit, we might be there this Friday, but from this point forward, we don't see ourselves being in San Juan because we're not welcome.
And as everyone who's in this room right now knows or doesn't know, we don't know if Vertigo has a use permit currently, correct?
Correct.
Or what that use permit says.
Yeah. it's not getting-
So when we have 18th Barrel having food trucks every Saturday, I think Monica, I don't know if that's another statement during summer.
Which we support, which is great. for
Oh,
them.
no, it's awesome. Yeah, I've gotten lots of stuff from those food trucks, trust me. But it's a concept where it's a food truck on private property.
Yeah.
And what we've heard tonight from the assistant city manager is what allows that is the 18th Barrel conditional use permit. So the difference between that property and Vertigo is that they do have a use permit, apparently, no one's seen it.
Yeah.
But Vertigo, we don't know if they have one or not. So it seems to me that the simple solution is adding a condition like Trans Fitzgerald had, this condition number 7, when she and Sean were thinking of doing that use at Dante's property, food trucks may be parked on site to provide food service. I think amending an existing conditional use permit is a pretty simple affair. You mentioned it yourself earlier, that conditional use permits are amended all the time. So if Vertigo has one, you already have 7 written. That was good enough for Sean and Fran in May of 2021. Why can't we just add this condition to Vertigo's existing CUP? If they have one, I'm pretty sure they do. I just texted.
Yeah, my problem is exactly, just look at how all this is met by the people who actually make these decisions.
Well, that's unfortunate, but that's
Yeah.
going to change.
So we just
So let's
can't-
get
we can't approach
things
it
flying
anymore.
straight first.
Just wish we could approach.
I know.
And I just want to let you know, in staff's defense, I want everyone to know that, staff did recently reach out to the Hopper Bros. And this also applies to Vertigo in hopes to rekindle this relationship and kind of start on another good foot.
You did.
Yes. Yeah, so, so I wasn't, we're making this happen, and so I just want to put that out there so that it doesn't look like the staff is, saying, hey, we're not doing this. I think it could be handled better, and we're gonna try to do better, and then I'm gonna make sure to hold these people accountable.
Approachable process.
Yes, and so that's why I made it a discussion item to see if we can look at training to help, facilitate that portion, and also look at code enforcement and whether they're targeting anyone and getting a report. And again, I want to apologize on the city's behalf, and I will make sure someone from staff again follows up with you tonight.
It's hard for me to believe now when I see his face. When you say that, it's really sad. Because I think we do deserve an apology, and we're not the enemy here, so. All I gotta say is, I would like to work with you, because you seem like an extremely nice guy, very approachable, and I want to work with you. But that does not seem to be the case on all fronts here, and I won't be in a closed room with certain people. I will not.
Got it.
But I will work with you.
I will make sure we get someone to get in contact. I'm going to allow for another further public discussion. So yes, if you want to come up to the podium and add a comment, it's fine.
Sorry, I know this is out of order. Rolling Coastal again.
Welcome.
But the previous weekend, there was a different food truck at
Mhm.
Vertigo. And I just want to follow up a little on what Jared said about that particular weekend when Williams was in town. That is the weekend, I believe,
Mhm.
when they cited the truck. And I'm not sure, I 100% understand why a CUP would be required at all. I think a business license probably is required. And I wanted to also follow up on what you said about minorities and issuing of code enforcement. Code enforcement went after our neighbors for their goats, for keeping the grass down, saving us from fires. And they just decided to go after these people because they knew they wouldn't fight that. And every city manager we've ever had has given those goats and any large property, because it's I don't know, 8-10 acres, an exemption for goats.
Thank you.
Leanna Brothers, Inaka.
Welcome.
I just want to say that going forward, and I appreciate the apology and that everyone is listening. But I also want to say that I think it would be a really good idea that if the city manager and assistant city manager, they're in a current position, that we have a mediator that works with Papa Bros on this going forward. I don't believe it would be well received either way without. Okay, and Brian, I don't believe anyone here in this room asked for you or the city to make biased decisions. You said everything that everyone said here, you turned it into that you can't be biased towards a business. And I think that was very wrong of you to state. What did you state regarding the sentence about being biased then? Okay, I heard that after you stated that you felt this was bias, so that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
I
Yes.
would like to see the city, rather than throwing money after consultants here and there, if the city sees problems with our ordinances, why don't you suggest that to the commissioners and council, and let's fix those. Let's not just go out chasing after wild goose chases.
Thank you. And then I think, yes, we have one more.
Okay, let me just with 18th Borough.
Welcome.
Dan, thank you very much for using that 18th Borough as an example. I know that when we came here in 2016 to start this opening, I know Monica had a huge vision to come in and bring basically Murphy's into this town.
I remember, but I was there, remember?
Yeah, you, John Hopper,
Yeah.
Scotty, all you guys. The one thing that was so encouraging, and I cannot state this enough, is the minute that I walked in, I shouldn't say I, that we walked in. If you hear me say I, it's we. Okay, that we walked in to this office with Mr. Grimsley, and at that time, the city manager, their exact words were, what can we do to help you to get into this, to San Juan Bautista? And it's unfortunate that even when Nacas was trying to open up, Habas, the candy people and other people who we've helped out, because they've helped us out. And I'll be more than happy to help anybody out with it's my construction background or like with Sean and Fran with all their legality stuff to help them out. We'll be there. But never once have I heard, unfortunately, everyone who's come into this town has never heard those words that we were thankful to hear. What can we do to get you guys in here? You told us that. John Hopper told us that. Scott Lewis told us that. The city manager, everybody back at that time said, what can we do to help out? Even the gentleman, I can't remember his name, he lived in Santa Cruz, but even he said, you know what, I'm going to rearrange the parking arrangements in town. We'll make it happen for 18th Borough. Andy, who sat here and met this gentleman's chair, Mr. Maderios, in his chair said, you know what, I'm giving up my 2 parking spaces in front of my house so 18th Borough can be here. So it hurts me. It hurts me in a huge way that all these beautiful people, these business owners, don't have the help, don't have the guidance, the proactiveness of saying, hey, what can we do to help you to make sure you don't go through this nonsense?
I know you, Anthony, that meant a lot to you. I remember that. I was on the council, I was sitting
Yeah.
right there, and you've
Yeah.
mentioned that to me every time I see you, I think since 2016,
Yep.
how much it meant to you that the city welcomed you.
It did. Until this day, I still feel good like that, but it just hurts me because all these people have grown to love their family. They're not just friends. And you guys know each and every one of you come to the barrel, you become family with us. Right? That's the way the Hopper Brothers treat everybody. That's the way Nacas treats everybody. Green 25 treats everybody. Your family. And to be able to have to come here and get kicked in the teeth and be treated like that, to not actually be asked, hey, what can we do to be proactive to help? But have to fight through all this. Really hope it changes, and I hope that the council here can really do something to change what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom land? Clifton, I think we were trying to get back to you. I see Dawn, I think just raised his hand.
Minaka, can
Okay.
somebody speak for Minaka?
Yep.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Welcome.
Okay, sorry, my phone was unable to unmute earlier. I apologize for that.
No
I'm
worries.
sorry. My name's Rhonda. I'm Steve. He spoke earlier. I'm his wife, partners of Inaka, owner of being owners of Inaka and on the hospitality group with all those fine people you're sitting in front of there tonight, as well as on the San Juan Bautista Business Association that established in 2015. Living here for 20 years now, I've seen really good changes to San Juan since I started living here, up until about 6-8 months ago. I'm backing Hapa. I back every business in that town, every one of you sitting there. But I'm tired of hearing of harassment, targeting that's going on to businesses that are successful in this town, bringing tax dollars to this town, visitors to this town. We need to correct the way we're addressing things. City manager, assistant city manager, code enforcement, all he's doing is targeting people. He's targeted my neighbors. He's targeted our restaurant customers with tickets because they're parked 10, 12, 18 inches from the curb. I was given a citation. I was well within the white lines. It's just ridiculous. I think you guys, not you guys, I don't know who decides this code enforcement, gentlemen. I think you guys are wrong for having an ex-sheriff be a code enforcer because they don't think like a community member. They don't think like a business member. You need to get somebody in there that cares about the businesses, cares about the community, wants better for our community instead of running people away, pissing people off, pissing off customers that come to my restaurant to provide us with income, provide tax dollars. It's just getting ridiculous. I've seen a huge negativity in our town in the last 8 months, and I would love to see it stop. On the note of parklets, please keep our parklets. We are still trying to survive from COVID. I know the government, federal, whatever, said COVID's over as of February 28th. I'm sorry. My mom just had COVID. COVID's not over. COVID is here to stay. And without the parklet, we can't supplement that income that we have. We can't provide our customers that want to come not sit indoors. They feel safer outdoors still. This is here to stay. I hate to say it. But do your best at helping support us. I appreciate every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments from Zoom staff? Brian? Clifton?
Still wondering about Clifton, but it doesn't seem to connect. So one more try. And that's not working. So Jared Gallagher, who's already spoken, would like to speak again.
I think we need a meeting.
Jared?
Hey, I'm sure I can be heard. Is that correct?
Yes, welcome.
Hey, I want to thank you again. I wanted to reiterate a couple of fine points. One of which is my role is to try and help this situation and the situations that are coming. Secondly to that, I will very carefully say that getting on to any public meeting and say, if you don't like the way I'm doing my job, fire me, and then laughing is not enough. And it's not an acceptable response. And I would love the opportunity to talk about why that isn't in person, but I think everyone here deserves better than that. I'm emotional about this because I'm fighting not just to survive, but thrive. And in order for me to thrive, San Juan has to thrive. And it's not just Hardeen's and the guy who owns the grocery store that gets to thrive and survive. We all have to fight for that. So that is an emotional part. I think we can all understand that. And if you don't like the way I'm doing my job, fire me is not good enough and should not be uttered. Secondly to that, when it comes to this code enforcement, I understand that this is the planning commission that was pointed out to me and it's appreciated. But I think it's very important that we understand the scenario that I went through where I was directed to do something that's directly against ADA compliancy, where I spent money and my building owners, my landlord spent money to bring it up to compliancy. And I was told that by code, I need to put them somewhere where I can't because of what ADA requires. So there is some educational purposes that are missing here. When we want to go cite someone, the process should be, let's find the code, let's define the code for this particular exception to it, deliver that code, inform code enforcement of how that applies and how it can be remedied without removing state and federal guidelines that are in place to protect things like ADA, fire, egress in buildings. I think everyone in this room knows that there's a great big iron structure in front of my fence, which violates my egress. So when code enforcement just rolls out and arbitrarily gives out codes and they're not writing the code and they're not informed of that, this community, this panel, the city panel, everyone involved has to do better than that. Give us an opportunity to understand it. That is your job. There are laws, we abide by them, but you got to define it. You got to explain it. And it has to be in compliance with all the other things that the businesses have to be in compliance to, because whether it's realized here or not, we don't just deal with planning. We deal with fire, life, and safety. We deal with the health department. We deal with many things that a business has to have in place to operate that code enforcement does not supersede. So everyone can understand that that's a pretty ridiculous request for me to put garbage cans in front of a sidewalk where you're meant to roll a wheelchair down. And I was told to do that. Secondly, on this comment is I was also told in person, and Fred, I apologize to this, but I asked you if this was because someone called on me and your words were, no, I am just being preemptive here. And I called environmental health myself. No one complained. So there's something wrong with how we're approaching this. It's not arbitrary. There is misception, there's lies, there's confusion, there's things that are undefined, there's lack of consistency, and it needs to be addressed at the core root of it. I wanted to define that. This is not about my ability to compete with street vendors that show up 2 times a year. I actually have to operate every day of the year here. So this panel and every other panel needs to care more about that. Code enforcement came out on Sunday and cited everyone for anything that they had on their list of people. And on Thursday, it all went away. Everybody in this room should be asking themselves why that is, because there's a reason for it, and it is targeting your businesses. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Jared. I'm not sure if I saw Don's hand raised.
I don't see Don's hand raised.
I want to invite anyone to come and meet with me. Jared, let's talk about this further. I spent 10 years in the restaurant business paying for my bachelor's degree. And I apologize. I apologize for being emotional. So I just want to apologize to everyone on this meeting. I love my job. I find it to be very fulfilling, and I'll work here as long as you'll have me. So I apologize for that emotional response. I'm feeling a little bit attacked and I need to detach. So I'm going to go for a good run in the morning and take care of business, and I'll be at City Hall at 8. You're welcome to come meet with me, Jared.
Thank you, Don. Any other comments or from Zoom? Nope. Jackie.
Thank you, Chair. Last comment, Jackie Morris Lopez, City Council member. Just want to say thank you once again for all the commentary. I hope we can move forward in a positive manner and that we can have some resolution to all of this. But I also just want to say, remind everybody that's listening or there or on calls or Zoom that we have a city survey that has been put out in our water bill to attend the public meeting on this Friday, the 14th and Saturday, the 15th, but also you have access to a form where we are soliciting your input, more of what we heard tonight. Please tell your friends and neighbors. If you don't have a computer, you can pick up a hard copy at the library during their hours. And you can also pick one up at City Hall. And I would hope that all of you can fill this out. It's really important to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Any more?
Just one more thing. I just want to make sure that the Alpha Brothers and maybe Vertigo got a link to the applications that need to be submitted. I think yesterday or maybe this morning, first thing, sent that information again after sending it maybe a couple of weeks ago or so. But you have, if you have any questions about what's in that email that contains those links, if you're not able to download them, or if you didn't get them, let me know and I'll just resend them again tomorrow morning. So
Just a discussion, I'll let you go. If you guys aren't comfortable, again, going to Anthony's point of how can I help? I don't mind being mediator there or being that middle person. To bridge that gap essentially. And we can just discuss that at another time. I know you have a comment, sir. If got it. We'll make sure that goes out. Thank you. Is there any other comments from Zoom chambers? Okay, I'm gonna open up this discussion. Any other comments from our planning commissioners?
Good eyesight, David. But I'm happy to go last or next or whatever, if you'd like to go now. Sure.
Yeah, there's so much said tonight. There's so much said tonight, and I've been listening, writing down notes and stuff like that. And I'm trying to comprehend everything. I'm trying to understand where we need to go. But you need to know that I'm here to move this city forward in every capacity that we need to do to do the things that's right for the city. And that's what I am here for. So when you see me here at these meetings, realize that's my objective here, is to get things moving forward for what is right for the city and for all the business owners, for all the citizens that live here. That's what I'm here to do. I've heard what you had to say, and I'm going to take that and put that, internalize that, and make sure that I will remember each word as best I can as I do when I come here to make any decisions. And I promise to all of you that that's what I'm here to do. And hopefully I get a chance to talk to each one of you individually and let you know who I am, why I'm here and doing the things that I'm doing. And I hope that our conversation will be a dialogue to help all of us move forward. And if we're going to have any debates, that we'll do it on invitation, because we're trying to make decisions together as a group, as a city. And we're all Americans here, we're all citizens, and that's what we need to do here. I'm dedicated to work with the commission, with the boards, and with staff, but most of all with the public. So that's what I'm here to do, and I will commit to that. And I'm hoping that every decision I make from here on out will, certify what I mean when I say. So thank you. And I want to thank all of you for coming here. I wish most of you would come back the following meetings and be here. And I'd love to hear you some more what you have to say. But if you don't, I'm gonna go out and get you anyway. Thank you.
Any comments from Commissioner New York Smith?
I applied for this position because I loved hearing people, what they had to say. And so I don't have my own agenda. I want to listen to everybody else and follow what the public hears. And I've heard loud and clear today what the public wants. And so I think we will come up with a way going forward to be very, very welcoming for all businesses and to make sure that we're supporting all businesses so that we can very consciously grow and keep the historical, just the reason everybody lives here intact. So please stop me on the road, when I'm out walking my two dogs. I promise they don't bite. And I would love to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner DeVries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to summarize, if we can, at the end of this long discussion as to where we are now. First of all, I think it might benefit us all to get some clarity on a few things. The term permits, plural, has been thrown around loosely in kind of an obtuse way, in my opinion. Permits can mean anything. And which permits are at issue tonight with Hopper Brothers? There's only two: a business permit and a conditional use permit. Those are the two permits in play. The need for a business permit stipulated. Let's get that off the table. Who cares about a business? He tried to get one already, wasn't provided with, or wasn't given an opportunity to get one. So the only issue therefore is a conditional use permit. As we've heard, that's what distinguishes 18th Barrel from having a food truck there every Saturday night from Vertigo, who has the same kind of food truck. 18th Barrel has a use permit that provides for that. Brewery 25 was going to have a use permit, or did get one. One was issued for them to have a food truck. Does Vertigo have a use permit? Oh, we don't know. Has anyone seen it? Nope. Has anyone looked at it? Nope. City staff? Nope. I think, in my own opinion, it was completely inappropriate to issue compliance orders and citations until at least it could be determined whether Vertigo has a use permit that would allow Hopper Brothers or not. Shouldn't we get the answer to that first, not last? If they do have a use permit, and I texted Dimitri, he hasn't responded to me. Probably he's up on the, you know, where he lives on the grade. But if they do have a use permit, it's a very simple thing to add a condition number 7, like Sean and Fran were given. And I'm sure Anthony and Monica probably have a condition like that too. Whereas any notion that the food trucks that go to the 18th Barrel, every single one of those different ones has to get their own, go through this a conditional use permit process with the city of San Juan Bautista, every single food truck. That's ridiculous. I don't even know how you issue a conditional, a CUP we call them, a CUP to a food truck. As the assistant city manager said, CUPs run with the land. They don't run with the truck. And what would you be conditioning with a truck? You condition the land, the property, with hours of operation and noise and all those other things that are, you know, this is number 7 on your use permit, Fran. I bet you there's a whole bunch of conditions on here, right? So you condition the land. In this instance, if Papa's intent on locating at Vertigo going forward, then we should be talking about either an amendment to the existing Vertigo CUP or maybe a new one. It's not that complicated. It shouldn't be that vague. So in terms of, you know, giving the advice and welcoming you to San Juan and so forth, that's the path we need to pursue, in my opinion. And it's not a hard one. Very simple. Everyone loves Hopper Brothers, as you heard. I think it's a great location, plenty of room, good lighting, nice and places for people to go eat on the Vertigo premises or take it home. So I think this is a lot easier than has been made out tonight to solve and to go forward in the best interest of the city of San Juan Bautista. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, I will give some closing remarks here. I just want to let everyone know in chambers, thank you, everyone on Zoom, thank you for coming out. Thank you for having this discussion. And thank you for giving us this constructive criticism. I really value it. Just so you guys know, I am new to the commission and I've been appointed as your chair. And I'm going to do whatever it takes, whatever possible, to listen to you guys and give you what it is what you're looking for. I know we've been appointed here for the people, and I really take that to heart, and I'm very passionate about it. And so again, going back to Anthony's point, what is it? How can I help you? And so I am here. I want to let you guys know that my door is always open. You can always reach me, email, text. I usually constantly run town. I'm usually there on the weekends visiting your guys' shops, and I would love to have a conversation. And whatever it is that you have or you're frustrated about, you can always come to me, and I'll make sure to take it to heart and really digest it and kind of figure out a way to meet you, or at least fix whatever it is that you're upset about. And so I'm going to leave it at that, where we will talk with our staff. We will work with them, and hopefully we can get a resolution quickly, effectively, and also look at those ordinances and really take a look at what makes sense for the city at this moment. Again, thank you. And so I think for that's it for this discussion, and we are going to be moving on to the next discussion. Yes, we will be taking a small recess for 5 minutes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, we are. All right, hi, welcome everyone again. Thank you for being patient. We are going to be moving on to our next portion of the agenda, which is number 6, information and discussion items. Letter C, downtown parking plan comments. Staff, do we have a report or presentation?
Actually, I just wanted to make sure that you had, I know we had a request for information about parking in downtown area. And I think it's appropriate that the study that was done is relatively complex. There's some alternatives in there. There are various parking schemes that are in there. There's a study that was done to allocate costs and to figure out what those should be. But I think would be appropriate for the commission to consider this as an information item. And then if you have questions about it that you want to see on a future agenda, you can let me know. But for now, you've got a staff report from Dawn in 2020. That's pretty comprehensive and talks about all those things. And then you have a study that was done by Harrison Associates that has descriptions of alternatives and estimated costs sort of an outline of a parking district if the city wants to see that, which could solve a lot of problems, but again, that's a pretty weighty subject. So I would encourage you to read the report, and then if you have questions, then let me know. We can put them back on the agenda.
Thank you. Planning commissioners, is there any discussion items or discussion you want to talk about regarding the parking or any questions that you guys might have? That's a no for Commissioner Newkirk Smith. Commissioner DeVries.
Just a couple of brief ones. So there has been no action taken on the Harris report since it was written in 2019.
Not with respect to a parking district, no. I think that was the purpose of the study, was to determine, what the alternatives are to forming a district, but I don't believe anything's been done. I think the city has added some parking spaces in various places and striped those. That might be a partial response to this study. After everybody looked at the cost and the complexity of it, I think a simple solution was just to find parking places, areas that could be striped for parking. And I know Dawn is still here. So go ahead, Dawn.
I'm sorry, it takes a minute for Zoom to tell you to unmute. And so now I understand what it's like to be in the audience. So for all of you in the Zoom audience, I'm with you. Recall that after the Harris report was written, we had this thing called COVID that created parklets in parking spaces. and so implementing a parking plan at that point was really difficult and remains that way as we know. We just spent 90 minutes discussing parklets, and that impacts our parking. I'll just share with you my background. I grew up with a book written by UCLA professor Donald Shoup called The High Cost of Free Parking. It was published, I would say, 2012, 2014, and we tried to implement a paid parking program in downtown Salinas. And the issue was we didn't have a demand. In fact, I might be dating myself. It might be back closer to 2008, 2010 during that massive recession. There was no demand. At the same time, we're trying to implement paid parking. And so I learned quickly that parking is a three-legged stool. It requires designated city managed parking. It requires enforcement of parking restrictions, whether that's a 90-minute time frame for parking in front of a store on 3rd Street or however that is done. And then it requires that this revenue be brought into a district and put back into the parking system. And a lot of times in downtowns, you'll find that you have a business association and parking district, they're the same. So that for every $1 of a parking ticket you write, 75 cents goes to the district to water the trees and plants and to take care of the parking facilities that are in that district. And so what that 2019 report does is it shows the potential for a great parking district in our downtown. But we don't have any of the institutional framework upon which to build the district. So we've been struggling. We still have currently two business districts downtown. We really need one to work as a unified group together, and then incorporate parking and what to do with parking revenues into that. So that whole decision of having an autonomous downtown chamber of commerce, downtown business association, it has not quite materialized yet. Instead, we have two, and we're working our best, Brian and I, to bring those two together into one business association and perhaps one parking district. So the parking district will finance itself. You go from timed parking, 90-minute, 2-hour parking in the. So San Luis Obispo has a great example of how it costs $3 an hour to park downtown. You're 1 block away, it costs $1.50. You're 2 blocks away, it costs 75 cents. So that's a demand response to the pricing of the parking in downtown San Luis Obispo, and they do a great job of managing it, very consistent with Donald Shoup's model from the high cost of free parking. So if you don't want to implement all these components, which are brand new to San Juan Bautista, are we going to have paid parking? Are we going to have time limits? Are we going to? Is that the type of control that you want, or do you want something looser? So what Ed Tuiz, the previous acting city manager, asked Harrison Associates to do was to look at the potential. Now, I talked to a property owner yesterday for an hour about several things, including the fact that he's renting his parking spot to vendors when we have a permit to a special event provider and that he's ignoring. And so Ron and I at the Clock Shop came to an agreement. And at the very end of the conversation, I asked Ron, could we lease your parking spot? Could we landscape it? Could we pave it? Could we stripe it, fix it up and lease it and protect you from liability, et cetera? And he thought about it for a minute and he said no. And so that's where we are with a parking district downtown. There are vacant properties that have potential, but we need the institutional structure in the form of a actual district and chamber of commerce or business association, and then we need property owners to participate. So what the Harris Associate study does is show us this great potential for consolidating lots and putting surface parking down, if that's what we want to do, or maybe building a small 2-story structure on one of those parcels, that's freeing up the other parcels for commercial development, which is what we did in Salinas. So there's a number of variety. I'll just say that the San Juan Bautista is ripe. It's ready for this. It's ready to move forward with an organized parking system. But I'm looking for the willpower from the community to stand up and take charge and help us with this. So that's where I'm at with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
We have Jared Gallagher in Zoom, I think, has a comment. Jared, your hand's up. Welcome.
Hi there, everyone. First of all, thanks for listening to me so much. It's appreciated. I know it's probably not fun.
No worries. Thank you for being here.
I have 3 quick things here. Obviously, parking is an issue across the board, so a lot less emotion involved in it. But the 3 quick things are, one would be the path to understand it. But the first one being, is it possible for us to work on some sort of the plan when it comes to parking when we have these events? We reserve areas for trash and things like that, but the employees and there's no designated space for people. I would imagine that some cities, if you're working the San Francisco Farmers Market, employees get vouchers. I don't even know if that's realistic or possible, but it was a thought that I had that would help, because these events are great and they help everyone. And, we want our town to be fantastic with them. We want to attract them and we want promoters to make money, but accessibility to the businesses is, critical definitely for me. The second one is, I know I brought this up several times and apparently it was talked about when I wasn't there. It's probably my fault, but the ADA parking or handicap parking at my particular business is not to California guidelines. It is in the middle of the street on the other side of the road where they have to move down, and I've asked for ADA parking, handicap parking at front of my restaurant, and the response was on 4th Street has that. I disagree with that. Vertigo does. And if we did it for you, we do it for everyone, or we'd have to, but you know, I am in a independent circumstance and people think it's me, and it's not. And they get upset, and I understand why they get upset. So I need a path to be able to challenge a decision that was made on that, if there was one, and if not, I need to be able to re-engage that. My last thing on the parking, and this is where I need to do some diligence and some research, but there seems to be some lack of accountability for getting the parking lots that are closed. I'd love the city to do something about that, but that's a challenging thing. But there is also multiple apartment complexes, and I did spend some time reading the, you know, required parking for, you know, residents that live in these, you know, multiple residency buildings. And it's clearly not enforced, right? The people don't use their parking spaces, and, you know, the code is written for, and I don't even know how the city would approach from a planning standpoint, but putting some sort of earnest on, you know, if I live in Capitola and I'm going to be parking a car on the street, then I've got to go and get my year permit and I pay whatever fee there is. And at least the city has some sort of metric to control how many vehicles and can put a limit on, even if you own a property, how many of those permits can be issued per people. And then it gets super complicated. I'm not a parking guy. Those are just 3 things that, you know, are challenging for me, that I can't seem to get any traction with. I'll leave it at that.
Jared, is that the end of your comment, or did you?
Yeah, that's the end of my comment. I'll leave it at that, and maybe.
Jared, if it's fair for me to say, I will have someone from staff reach out to you regarding the ADA stuff and see if we can relook at that situation.
It's appreciated. Thank you guys for the time and dealing with me. I'm a handful.
Don't, not even. Thank you for at least giving us your feedback.
Mr. Chair, can I ask Jared a clarifying question? Yeah. Jared, the end of here, when you were talking about events, well, I think a rib cook-off, crafts fair, sorry, my brain is fried right now. And you were talking about dedicated spaces. You mentioned employees, your employees, but were you also, did you have in mind dedicated spaces for your customers as well? Because it seemed like you referenced that briefly.
I mean, that would be nice, but I recognize the issue with that, right? And I don't even know if that's reasonable to ask because it's such an influx of people. But of course, that would be super nice to be able to, you know, allocate a space out in front of my building for at least pickup. But the more critical issue is you know, focusing on how do our businesses get their employees to and from the business, and not get left not being able to get there. It's a challenge.
Right. Right, and the difficulty with your spot is that it's all on street. Since
yeah, I mean, I want to be real positive about it, but you know, sometimes it feels as if, you know, 4th Street, it's an independent problem that I have because, you know, where I am is kind of isolated from a business perspective, that sometimes it feels like the garbage kind of rolls downhill, but I chose the spot, you know, that's on me. So.
Okay, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, take care.
Anyone else from Zoom land? Nope. Okay, anyone from Chambers? Comments from Chambers? All right, no comments for Chambers. From our planning commissioners, any discussion items or anything you would like to say? No?
I would just renew my question, which is I'm not exactly sure what we're supposed to do. I think that parking is a critical issue for downtown, for our merchants, for our shops, for our restaurants, and I think it needs to be addressed. As Don Reynolds said, this report's pretty detailed. It would take some time to go through it all. So Don, let me ask a question to you and to Brian. If you had your dream come true, what would you like this planning commission to do on the issue of parking right now, April 2023, if anything?
If I'm unmuted, I can't tell from the screen that I'm looking at. Apparently not. Dan, thank you for the question. I think tonight is an introduction. I think we've introduced a lot of new ideas to some of our new commissioners, and like I said, there's a lot parking is I know people who do parking 110% a day, and that's all they do is parking. And so there are plenty of experts in the field. There are plenty of great models, plenty of great downtowns, Nevada City, some other places. Monthly parking permits is one thing I heard Mr. Gallagher refer to. Could my employees get a $50 or $30 a month parking permit to be on a city street? That's all paid parking. That's all that whole thing that we haven't ventured into. I don't know that San Juan Bautista has ever considered paid parking. I know I used to walk in downtown Salinas with the mayor, and he would point to these little circles in the sidewalks, and that's where the parking, the paid parking, the little stand was, and the city went through with chainsaws and cut them all off because there was a huge protest about having parking meters downtown. And so we don't want to install parking meters to have them removed 10 years later. So the whole idea of paid parking is an intense subject to think about. We want to welcome, as what I heard tonight, is we want to welcome visitors to our town, and we don't want to turn them off with the high cost of free parking. So
I guess, Don, my question was kind of more generalized. What shall we do with this issue? What would you like the planning commission to do? Would you like to set it for a future agenda, for a deeper discussion, a deeper dive? Or would you like us all to ponder it? I think Brian said, take the report and look it over, see if there's anything that piques your interest.
right,
What's our takeaway? What do we do?
Let's keep it as a standing item on the planning commission. You have the report, you have a month to read about it, and we can pick it up and we can talk about a planning parking district in a month from now, and we can see if we want to move this forward to the city council.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Don.
Hey, Don, actually, I have a question for you. This is Jose. Or Brian, either one who can address it. I'm sure I'm looking at covered solar parking revenue and all that. So I got to read the report a little more in depth. In regards to electric car charging, EV. Is that also included in this report? Is that something that's going to be looked at? I would like to see I would like to see San Juan be the middleman where people from the Bay Area come in their Teslas and they come and they charge their car here because they probably spend some money in this
While they eat.
while they eat. And so they will park there. Yeah. And we, have them park here, charge their car and be the middleman for those going all the way to Carmel, so is that something that's being considered? Is that being looked at? And also, would this pertain or would this go in line with looking at how parking is affected if we were to, earlier we discussed closing down 3rd Street, if that was a something we were actually, going to move forward with. So those are two things I would like to see done or looked at.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate your questions. One thing I realized early in my downtown parking career was that if you don't have a system, the community invents its own system. So, for example, when we have events, the school sells parking for $5 a spot at the soccer field, and they're making hand over fist. I want to say Parent Teachers Association. I know there's a formal name for it. It doesn't come to me right now, but that's an example of paid parking in our downtown that is not structured, is not sanctioned, is one event a year, and it's coming around the corner for us, a rib cook-off. So there was a huge retreat at the Mission last weekend. And I had a council member call me and say, what were they doing at the Mission all weekend? Oh my gosh, they had vendors, they had music, they were having fun up there. I said, the Mission can do on its property what it wants to do, but thank goodness it can park everyone that comes, almost everyone that comes to that event. And that 4-day event does benefit our downtown, I hope. I hope it benefits our merchants downtown. So there are privately structured parking going on around us right now. And so I think forming a parking district and looking at that whole picture and the business model of it would benefit us to take control of it and to take the lead in it. Instead of being the follower, I think the city could step up and be more of a leader in parking than a follower.
Got it. And what about that EV charging stuff? Is that something that's being looked at or considered as well?
Yeah, thank you. We have opportunities through a group called 3CE, which is the group that provides this is a community power cooperative that we are a member of, that Council Member Freeman is the chairman of their board right now. And I am meeting with them about EV charging stations. I'm also meeting with them about a solar panel array that would keep our city off the grid and up and running in the event of a power outage. So this is a group that has incentives and can help reimburse us for these opportunities. EV charging has come to the state parks. They had an opportunity to put in 3, and we helped them, guide them. We wanted them at the soccer field, of course, perhaps at the Windmill Shopping Center. The new gas station that is moving forward slowly but surely across 156 has a whole Tesla approved charging station going in there. So they are on the horizon, and they're coming both publicly and privately funded.
Got it. Thank you. And then one last question. I know you mentioned, talking to these business owners that have these lots that you would like to lease from, and essentially they're just saying no. What is it that we can do, or is there anything else that we can entice or make them reconsider or change their mind so that they allow us to lease that property and park some cars there?
So the bottom line is, if we can charge for parking in their parking lot, then we have the revenue source to maintain it and make it better.
Got it.
We cannot give away. That's the whole irony of Donald Shoup's book. There is a high cost of free parking. So we need to provide $1 an hour or something, a kiosk where you put the sticker in your dashboard and it's $3 an hour, and that not only pays for the kiosk, but it pays for the
lease.
Yeah, the stormwater containment and all the things that go with running a parking lot.
Got it. All right. Well, thank you. Those are the questions that I have. I think we have another commissioner that's gonna ask away.
Hi, Don, I had a question as far as what level was the EV charger? Is the one by the baseball field is only a 2. Are we looking at bringing in any 3s?
I think there's a variety. Definitely the Tesla station will address all varieties. I haven't seen specific feedback from the state parks. They have a new superintendent, or actually they're lacking a superintendent. And so we have a bit of a void there. We had some progress going, and then it faded away. So I hope to have a variety of choices for our city. And I don't have any specific plans on the table right now, to be honest with you. But I know there's interest.
Got it. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Any other, all right. Other than that, I think that's it. We don't have any other questions. So we are gonna move on.
Motion to adjourn.
Actually, not yet. Yep. Planning commissioners, are there any, or I'm sorry, I'm gonna be moving on to planning commissioner comments. Are there any comments at all? No? Community Development Director Brian or Fauch, do you have anything? for
No
us?
comments?
Thank you. And last but not least, adjournment. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting, the planning commission.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Can I get a roll call? Oh, I don't need a roll call. Oh, okay, cool. Then that's it. Cool. All in favor? Aye. Just a reminder, everyone, that the next regular meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, May 2nd, 2023 at 6 p.m. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming.